listening to the Overcast. Sunshine on a cloudy day. Part of the Oversoul Gaming channel. Hello there, everyone, and welcome to the Overcast, your joke-making, fun-having pop culture podcast. I am your host, Justin, aka Oversoul.
And I am Nick, aka the Vaping Fiend.
Yes, and you also happen to be the co-host. Let's not forget that.
Yes, you're right, I did. Wow. How... Hi.
Boy, man, you really
I'm having a little bit of a drinky drink tonight, guys.
Yeah, he had a moment there. He definitely had a moment.
I did. I had a bit of a moment.
It was like, would you like to introduce yourself? Sure. Hi, my name is Reginald von Bottomtooth III. My father was a great monastery that came before us, and, you know, the whole speech. And then, okay, and how about you? Hi, I'm Nick.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
IR Baboon. That is what it is. I am Weasel. IR Baboon. Yep.
My name is Jeff.
That's what
Yes.
happened. That's what happened just now.
That is exactly what happened just now. Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh man, taking me back, man. I loved that show when I was a kid.
-1 point for reminding me of that dumbass show. Sorry, that's right. This isn't Distractable. We don't do points here. This is
No.
the Overcast, although this was the most distractible intro we've ever had. Jesus Christ, what a mess.
Oh shit! All right,
That was beautiful. All right.
that was.
Oh. Gonna have to cut off the music with our record scratch. Oh my god.
Woo. All right.
Anyways.
So what's up with you, Justin?
Yeah. We're bringing you
man.
sunshine and drunk shenanigans on a cloudy day.
Little bit.
Yeah, apparently. So, me, well, you know, same old, same old. As you know, our friend Kyle came to visit recently, because we recorded a podcast episode with him, and if you find folks in the audience are listening to these in release order, then, you've already heard that one. So,
Yes.
but yeah, we recorded that. That was last weekend. This is a week later. We decided, obviously, I know I told everyone a few episodes back, we'll cut here and we'll keep going as a part 2 in the next episode. And here we are 2 episodes later and we still haven't come back to that. That's going to be the next one, folks. The next episode is going to be Media Corner Revisited Part 2, the next one after this.
Yes.
The reason that we bumped it up is because, well, for one, we were working on our guest schedule for that episode, but also
Yes.
I decided we should maybe instead of just rehashing a bunch of shit from season 1 2 episodes back to back, we should put a little variety in there and kind of space it out and have 2 original episodes instead between them. Save part 2 for a little bit later. It doesn't have to be right then and there. So this episode is going to be about villains, favorite villains.
Yes.
And stuff like that from all kinds of stuff. Villains from media, villains from stories, all of them, our favorite ones.
I've got a couple good ones.
Yeah, we're going to get into it. We're going to get deep into it. But before all that, the usual stuff, updates and all that. The date today is March 9th, 2024. Just so you know when we recorded this and how old the news you're hearing is that we'll talk about. Just because of the release order. Yeah, it is what it is. So, for me... lately. Like I said, hung out with Kyle. So the day after we recorded that episode, we watched some stuff. I showed him the not suitable for children South Park special.
Oh, did you?
Where
What
they
did he
make
think?
where they make fun of Prime and Logan Paul and
Oh, that was
OnlyFans.
lovely. That was so. That episode was beautiful.
Oh, you have seen it. Okay.
I
Yeah.
have, yes.
Yeah, he thought it was hilarious. It was great. You know.
I've also watched it specifically to watch them dig at Logan Paul.
Yep, and they sure did. They definitely did.
They sure the fuck did.
Among other things. But so he enjoyed that, and then it'd been a long time, like a very long time, since him and I sat down and watched an episode of SNL together. For a while there,
Fair.
he kind of like just fell off of it. Like a lot of people did. So I mean, I can't blame them. They did their writing did go kind of downhill a little bit there in the late 2010s. But now that Please Don't Destroy has joined the writing crew, I feel like their quality has gone up quite a bit.
Fair.
So
that makes sense.
and not every episode is a hit. There's some of them, a lot of them depend on the host too, and the host isn't always great. But
Right.
he is a fan of the comedian Shane Gillis, so we watched that episode, and that episode is probably one of the funniest ones they've done the entire season. So
Shane Gillis is supposed to be here in Rockford in a couple of weeks or so. He's going to be at the Coronado Performing Arts Center.
So, in order to warm up for the episode, he showed me a YouTube channel where Shane Gillis does comedy skits with a bunch of other people in a almost kind of like Tosh.0 fashion.
Okay.
He definitely feels like something that should be on Comedy Central when you watch it, and
Yeah.
it has that kind of
Does it?
vibe to it from a comedy aspect. I can't remember the name of the channel. I'd have to look it up again, but it is.
So he's Shane Gillis has a Netflix special.
Yeah, he's a stand-up comedian. Oh, it's called Gilly and
Yeah.
Keeves. Gilly and Keeves is the YouTube channel, and
Okay.
and yeah, so Shane Gillis does skits on there with a bunch of his friends and other comedians, and we watched a few of
Nice.
them, a couple of examples, because the reason is because I had already seen this SNL episode. I just watched them. There's, in fact, as we're recording this right now, there's a new one airing live, starring Josh Brolin, the guy who played Thanos in the MCU,
Ooh, okay.
as the host. Yeah, and Ariana Grande as the musical guest. So,
Okay.
that's gonna be a good one. I remember one of the times she was on the show before, she did that same skit Bruno Mars did, where she did impressions of other singers. She's actually really good at that.
Okay.
She's done that on Jimmy Fallon too. But anyways, so one of the skits they did on SNL Shane Gillis episode was a parody of the movie Like Mike, except it's a guy who gets those golden Trump shoes and starts turning into Trump. and he's like, so those shoes gave you the power to be good at basketball? And he's like, no, they gave me the power to think I'm good at basketball and then double down on that until other people start believing it. And it was beautiful. And they threw a little bite and jab in there too, because at the end of the skit, Mikey, they're like, oh, you've got some new shoes too? And Mikey Day is like, yeah, the Air Bidens. And he's like, now throw me the rock. And he throws him the basketball and he's like, here we go. And then he says, uh-oh, and then falls over. So it's beautiful, the whole thing. And so that was a hilarious skit. And then Kyle, when I was telling him about it, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I know why they had him do that, and I'll show you. And he pulled up this skit on YouTube from Gillian Keeves called Trump Speed Dating, where Shane Gillis plays Trump doing speed dating, doing that same whole, like, he's like gaslighting everybody who turns him down to twist things to make it look like they're the ugly one. Like, he'll hit on them, they'll turn him down, and then he'll be like, well, actually, you're ugly, and I turned you down, That was it's
Jeez.
it's fucking great. One of my favorite skit. There was a bunch of them. Like, I mean, content warning. A lot of these are. I don't want to say edgy. They're the kind of shit you'd see on Family Guy or South Park in terms of humor.
Fair enough.
So there's one called ISIS Toyota where the guy is doing a commercial trying to convince people to buy cars from him because his name is Bob Isis, and he's like, I swear I'm not affiliated with the group, and there's one called Uncle Daycare where they treat it like conspiracy theory believing uncles are mentally slow and they're at a special daycare for them. um, yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay.
So he showed me those, and then we watched the SNL episode, and you can tell that the writers for that episode have seen Shane Gillis skits on YouTube, and they've seen his stand-up because they wrote pretty much all the skits centered around his character, they gave him roles to play. One of my other favorites was it's a high school reunion for Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is there, and Shane Gillis plays one of the bullies that picked on him in the movie, and he's up there he wins the award for best dressed or whatever, and then Forrest Gump gets the award for most successful, and he's like, what? How? And he keeps trying to make fun of him for different things, like his mom and Jenny, and Forrest Gump is like, they're in heaven, and he's like, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't know. It's great because he keeps trying to one-up Forrest, and Forrest keeps saying things that make him feel like a shithead for what he's saying. So, and they have, of course, had Shane Gillis play the bully there. They also did a skit where about targeted ads where he was trying to hide the fact that he purchased a Green Bay Packers butt plug that plays music. Yeah, they definitely the writing team. Please Don't Destroy.
That's
plus.
Funny.
Please Don't Destroy plus all of the one of the Please Don't Destroy guys is the son of Steve Higgins, the co-host on Jimmy Fallon.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Steve Higgins is also a writer for SNL as well.
Okay.
And Colin Jost and Michael Che, who do the Weekend Update, are also writers for the show. But
right.
Please Don't Destroy seem to be really good at writing skits around who the hosts are. I will say the latest episode had Sydney Sweeney in it, and that one I wasn't as big of a fan of because it seemed pretty lazy, because almost all the skits in that one seem centered around how attractive she is. More than anything.
That's fair.
They did a whole Hooters sketch where she's really terrible at her job, awful. She spills beer everywhere. She causes a sober guy to relapse. She burns the food, or she drops hot food on a guy's lap. But they all still tip her thousands of dollars just because she's hot. And then the other girls who aren't as hot but do their job well get no tips.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm okay, that one's lazy. There was one good one in that episode, though, where she was a high school cheerleader, a popular cheerleader, hitting on the high school jock, the champion for the basketball team, who just so happened to be Air Bud, and for some reason she couldn't see that it was a dog. Everyone else around her is like, you do, one of the guys is like, you do realize that's a dog, right? And she's like, you had your chance with me, okay? Now, stop being jealous. So that one was pretty good, but most of the skits in that episode were lazy. But the Shane Gillis episode was great, absolutely great.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was glad to watch it a second time. We really, really enjoyed that. Another great skit from that episode is Fugliana, which it sounds so terrible, but SNL has fun. A lot of the writers and cast of SNL are very left leaning, so they don't mean any harm with this stuff. But this was, this was a skit about less attractive sex dolls for like less attractive, less confident guys. uh
Okay.
the sex doll is called Fugliana, and one of the Shane Gillis plays one of the guys who owns the doll, but other cast members do too. And one of them, uh, the funniest line in the entire skit was he said, my old sex doll looked like a woman you'd have to wine and dine, but Fugliana is the kind of girl that will S your D for air fryer dino nuggets and some limeade in a Shrek cup.
Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Oh, I have to watch this episode.
Yeah, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it for sure. And then I'll have to send you the Gillian Keeves YouTube channel. I'll send you
Yes.
I'll send you the one about the uncles, Uncle Daycare for uncles.
Yes.
That one's fucking great. It's just I know so many people like this, so like it was it's funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, what else is yeah. Recently, so Ryan sent me a code to get because we found out on the Meta store for the Quest, if you refer a game to a friend, they get a discount on it, and if they buy it, you get store credit. So
Nice.
he referred me Beat Saber, and I saved like 25% on it, knocking the price down from like $30 to $21. And
Nice.
and he got store credit for me buying it, and he told me that there's a way, if you turn on developer mode in the game and then download some apps on the computer and plug the headset in and do some stuff. Anyways, you can mod Beat Saber to put your own custom songs on it. So
Nice.
I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to have to do that. And I looked into it, but as it turns out, unfortunately, the most updated version of Beat Saber and some other updates to the overall headset and some restrictions implemented on the Quest 3 too. Long story short, it's currently not possible to do this the traditional way. There are some ways to do it, but it seems to be very difficult and people get stuck in a loop. But basically, in order to downgrade the store-bought version of Beat Saber to the version that you can mod, you have to have a later version than what is currently available, or earlier version than what's currently available. Right now it's on version like 35 something yada yada, and you needed like 34 or something in order to downgrade it. It's so and they made some changes to the way that your Meta account connects so that it no longer updates and downloads the modded versions of the game from the website you can grab them from.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
as it stands right now, the guy behind creating the way to get a modded version on your headset has said he's looking into a way to make the process compatible with the newer versions of the game and the newer headset updates. But as it stands right now, it's not impossible, but like more effort than it's worth at the moment to actually do it. It's way more complicated. All the tutorial videos are completely outdated, so there are like I had to dig and just reading what I had to do, and even I tried to do it, but I ended up getting stuck in a loop where it kept telling me that I couldn't update the game because I didn't own it on my account, even though I did. So eventually I gave up and said, fuck it, I'll just wait for the simple way to get fixed. Because and then I just deleted it and reinstalled it from the store, and then I bought the Daft Punk music pack because that's what I really wanted anyways. So I played a little bit of that, and that's oh god, it is so much smoother than the PlayStation VR version, which that one already ran pretty well. I can't lie, but this one, like the what's the word I'm looking for? The 1-to-1 like hand tracking is a lot more accurate. The accuracy of your movements, like there was On the PSVR, you have this problem that if you go too far out of the camera range, it'll start not tracking your shit correctly. So, but that's not a problem with the MetaQuest because it's all wireless and internal. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, oh, Beat Saber, by the way, I know you've seen me play it before. That's
Yeah,
a
I
game
have.
that's another one that I think you wouldn't get sick in because you don't move. The blocks fly towards you and you hit them with the lightsabers, but as far as there's never been a single case of someone getting sick in Beat Saber because there's no like
Okay.
it's a completely stationary game. Job Simulator is another one. That one's that people like because that's one of those goof around, grab things and fuck around with them and throw them and
Yeah,
be
I
silly games.
never ever thought I would see the day that I would get motion sickness until I tried VR. That shit was insane.
Yeah, I think we just put you in the wrong thing to begin with. We gotta give you something like Kingdom Hearts or Batman Arkham or Beat Saber or Job Simulator, something that's stationary,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're in one spot the whole time and have a body and hands, so that you can be
Yeah.
grounded in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that I think that would be a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, besides that, I went to see a movie recently. I'll talk about it later. You remember Union Dairy when you guys came out here? It's open
Yeah.
again.
Nice.
Um, it's open
Nice.
again, so we might have to go there the next time you visit. That or there's this restaurant downtown I've been meaning to try called Landmark Family Restaurant. Um,
Okay.
that I think would be good. But but Union Dairy, they're open again, so I went down there and I got a few pints of ice cream today, and I got a couple of the flavors that I remember we all really liked, like cotton candy and Play-Doh. So
Nice.
yeah. Um, besides that, not a whole lot. Just going super hard on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and that is another thing I'll talk about later. But yeah, I mean, work is the same now. Although, like, they switched my hours around a bit because they changed the policy about what time of day they can do pallets, like unloading pallets. So,
Mm-hmm.
but oh yeah, that's pretty much it. How about you?
Uh, so I mean, uh, work's been pretty much the same. I I did play some Fortnite this morning. I played some of the new season, and I I went to over to Mount Olympus and thought activated what I thought was a chest with like guns and ammo and shit in it. No, apparently I challenged Zeus, and not long after I activated whatever I activated, I get eliminated from Zero Build Battle Royal. Like, I
Wow.
didn't even have any weapons yet. I was eliminated at number 97. Yeah, no, I did not last long. Not by any means. Oh, and
He said
when I launched the game this morning, I immediately unlocked was it Cerberus? Yeah, Cerberus.
nice.
I'm
So you
really
you challenged a
ex
god and paid
I,
for it.
I am really excited for this season of Fortnite. I am big into Greek mythology. Speaking of Greek mythology, Sarah and I just watched Percy Jackson Sea of Monsters the other night.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the
I had
second movie?
that is that's the second movie.
Okay.
I had only ever seen the first Percy Jackson movie. I have never seen Sea of Monsters, so I watched it for the first time and I loved it. And I cannot
Okay.
wait for season 2 of the show because from my understanding, season 2 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians is supposed to be surrounding the story of Sea of Monsters.
Okay.
Let's see. What else? I'm gonna give this an offhanded mention because it's so fucking horrible. Um, I watched some of the Megamind show and some of the new Megamind movie on Peacock the other day. Uh,
Okay.
this is a me problem. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with the show or the story. This is just a me problem. The animation feels like it downgraded.
It probably did. Is it still DreamWorks?
It's still DreamWorks, yeah. Yeah, it's still
Hmm.
DreamWorks. But the other big thing for me was, and again, this is a me problem. None of the original cast came back to reprise their roles. Again,
Fair
probably
enough.
nothing wrong with the show. This is just a me problem. I just I didn't care for it. It feels like the movie that which came out 14 fucking years ago
Damn.
holds up better than the show and this new movie.
Fair enough. You don't really have to say it's a you problem, though. You can just say it's subjective. I don't know what the general public's opinion of this is, so I can't really say for one way or the other
That's
whether or not
fair.
your opinion's in the minority. Um,
Right.
and I haven't seen it myself, so I can't say anything.
Fair
But
enough.
you are entitled to your subjective taste,
I
regardless.
sure am. Okay.
So
Other than that,
yeah, that's yeah. To say it's a I mean, I get where you're coming from, but it's implied when you're reviewing something that a lot of where it's coming from is personal taste.
yeah. I'll talk about this more later, but since our last recording, uh, WWE 2K24 came out, and I played a little bit of that, and I'll talk way more in detail about it in the media corner.
Okay, nice.
This is exciting stuff, guys.
Anybody who's been listening to this show since the beginning knows that your most detailed talking moments revolve around wrestling for
Sure
sure.
does. Sure does. I could go on for hours.
Indeed. Well, all right then. In the spirit of that, since we're talking about Media Corner, I say that's a good time to go ahead and jump on over into it.
Yes.
So your imaginary friend has his own imaginary friends. Can I hang out with him too?
He's not imaginary. He's not your friend.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Media Corner. Extra, extra, read all about it. It's the part of the show reserved for news, reviews, and recommendations.
Yes.
Yes, yes. Or recommendations with caveats. There are that too. Um,
That.
so I got something fresh in my mind I'm going to talk about. So I'll go first on this one because I
All right.
recently saw a movie and it was not Dune Part 2. Not yet, anyway. I'll probably be going to see that one soon, though. But, I found myself last night or yesterday in the mood for, it just randomly struck me Dead Meat had uploaded a video to YouTube where they go into the Blumhouse basement and look at props from their horror movies, and then they get attacked by the bear from the new horror movie Imaginary. And I thought to myself, oh yeah, that's right, I saw the trailer for that. It looked like it was going to be a dumpster fire. I'm kind of in the mood for a potentially shitty horror movie. I think I'll go see it. And so I did. And while it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, it also wasn't anything to shake a stick at. You know, my bar for horror movies now is basically Talk to Me, so this pales in comparison.
Fair enough.
That being said, though, it was still enjoyable. I was expecting better, though, from the producers of Five Nights at Freddy's and Megan. So, you know, and that's what they advertised it. They're like, from the people who brought you Five Nights at Freddy's and Megan, you know, and it is not up to par with either of them.
Right.
That being said, though, there are parts of it that are good. So the premise of this movie is that this lady named Jess, when she was younger, the house she was living in, she had an imaginary friend that was actually like a demon, a familiar that was kind of latched onto her. And because she's super creative, it kind of like fed off of her power. And she escaped all that, and she kind of like suppressed the trauma of what happened, and because she was like 5 years old when it happened, so she grows up to think that because her dad, something happened with like her dad and the entity and all that, and her dad ends up in a nursing home with his brain kind of broken, and in her mind, what happened in her childhood was all just, you know, like a bad experience. Like her dad went crazy and she had to go live with her grandma for a while. She doesn't remember anything that actually happened. But her subconscious does, because she became a famous writer and wrote a book based off of her experience, a children's book called where the bad guy is a giant spider monster, you know.
Okay.
So years later, she gets married to a guy who has two daughters, and she becomes their stepmom, and they move it back into her old childhood home. And the youngest of the two daughters finds a teddy bear named Chauncey and befriends it. And it becomes her imaginary friend. Well, of course, as I'm sure you already figured, this imaginary friend is not very imaginary. He's in fact quite real, and things start getting weird. Now, the teddy bear itself is an inanimate object, but it's being controlled and possessed by the entity that is, you know, latched on, the real Chauncey. And all I can say is that this has got to be one of those movies where, like, there's a lot of horror movies where characters make stupid decisions. This movie, at least the first part of this movie, the decisions they make in this movie have to be among the absolute dumbest I've ever seen. Like, there is complete obliviousness here to a lot of this. Like, I mean, a perfect example is the stepmom and the dad are in the bed at night, and the girl comes in and she's like, Chauncey's playing hide and seek with me, you know, and she hides in the bed and all that. And the stepmom, she hears noises in the hallway, and she like peeks over the blanket to look, and she can see the fucking bear standing at the edge of the bed, just its ears, and she sees it go down, you know, and then she looks under the bed and looking for it, and because, you know, the dad takes the opportunity to pull a prank and have the daughter, you know, jump down and scare her at that point and jump scare the audience, she completely forgets about what she saw and moves on like everything is normal. Like, just because you got jump scared by your stepdaughter doesn't mean that you forget the weird shit that you just saw. I would still be looking for that, you know?
Right.
Another example is, like, they can hear her through the vent talking to her imaginary friend, and then she starts doing the voice for her imaginary friend. It sounds like she's doing the voice of the friend, but it is actually the entity talking. It's just mimicking her when it talks, and it's very creepy sounding. So she'll talk normal herself, and then the entity will talk back, and they hear it through the vent, and they're like, "Oh, isn't that cute? She's doing voices for her imaginary friend, having a conversation with it." And I'm like, "No, this isn't cute. I would be calling the therapist right now." Which, to their credit, they do call the therapist later, after things have already gone to shit, though, because this is the whole point of this movie. What the entity wants is it wants Alice, that's the girl's name, to go on a scavenger hunt of items that she has to gather together in order to perform a ritual to open a door into another dimension where all imagination comes to life. But the entity is just trying to get her there so that it can keep her there forever with it. And and it's like basically like a fucked up Narnia, you know.
Jeez.
And the scavenger hunt is simple things at first, you know, lock of hair, yada yada, something that makes you sad, something that makes you happy. Well, then it starts getting more dangerous, like something that will get you in trouble, something, you know, and then eventually down to something that hurts. And that's when the shit starts to get crazy, because some of the stuff you have to do, some of the stuff that the entity makes people do to hurt themselves is pretty fucked up. And in the case of Alice, she was about to impale her hand on a nail. Which she saw as a dandelion because of the way that, you know, it was messing with her. So, like, I don't want to get too deep into all of it, because I as mediocre as this movie is, I still kind of want people to see it, because there are some parts in it that are actually genuinely good that I don't want to spoil per se, but like, because this movie has like 3 plot twists. And one of them is actually good. One of them is an actually good plot twist, which in hindsight I should have saw coming, considering the plot, the movie's fucking title. But like, at the same time, like, the way it was presented throughout the movie made it very believable. So I thought that part was well done. But then there's like 2 other plot twists later, and one of them is predictable and stupid, and the other one is just there to make the movie longer, quite frankly. Like, literally, there are 2 different times I thought this movie was going to end, and it kept going. So, yeah. But I will say, so one of the plot twists is good, and then when they do call the therapist in, the girl who plays Alice in this movie is pulling double duty in this scene as both herself and the entity Chauncey arguing with each other, and she puts on such an amazing performance in this scene doing both of them, and like the emotion that she conveys, you know, and like the real like fear and anger and sense of betrayal. And it was insane. And this is the part where the movie actually starts to get kind of good. So the beginning of the movie is like, the first act of the movie is your typical, like, it's your typical horror droll. It's like it's your very paint by numbers, mark all of your, like, you know, entity horror movie boxes for the most part. You know, the typical jump scares and cliches. There are like 1 or 2 good jump scares in this movie. The rest of them are extremely predictable, and they really only happen in the first act of the movie. After once it hits the second act, they pretty much almost completely void of jump scares for the rest of the movie. So it's only in the beginning. The first act of this movie is pretty terrible. But then the second act, once the therapist comes in, and everything that happens after that is actually very interesting. And not only the scene with her, but in particular, there's this scene where the therapist is like, I recognize this, and she's showing the stepmom these videos on a laptop of these other kids that have been through something similar, and like the entity told them to hurt themselves too, and like kind of took my breath away because one of the kids she interviewed, he pulls up his hand to show that he cut his own thumb off, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Yeah, so like this is the part where the movie actually starts to get good, and a lot of the good twists come in, and some revelations about Jessica's childhood and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is where it gets good.
This is definitely a movie that I want to see.
But then we get to the third act, and the movie starts to fall in quality again a little bit. The third act of the movie is equivalent to one of those video games where you're going through a long hallway full of doors and avoiding the thing chasing you. Like,
okay,
it is literally that for the entire third act, basically. They are in the imagination world trying to avoid the real Chauncey, and get Alice back out. And that's also where one of the movie's stupid time, padding the runtime twists comes in too. There is a very interesting, intense scene, but I will, with Chauncey and the older sister, but I will tell you this, as intense as the scene itself is, Chauncey himself not only looks extremely fucking stupid, but also is extremely stupid. Because they're as big and strong, and he very easily takes down a character at one point, and he's basically a killing machine, and there are several moments in the third act where he has the upper hand on the other characters. He has them dead to rights, and he just stands there and fucking watches as they escape. He just stands there and watches the whole time.
Jesus Christ.
And I think it does kind of tie into one of the twists that they have and what the whole point with that was. But still, like, I don't know. I still feel like if he really... Because he had an opportunity. He had a golden opportunity to kill the older daughter at one point. Like, it was right there. And he just stands in the corner and stares at her the whole time. He just stands there and stares. It's typical horror villain stupidity.
Okay.
Also, this movie has an old lady exposition character. Like the crazy old lady that was like watching them, standing in the yard watching him through the window, and they're like, "Oh, that old lady's creepy." And then she comes out and she is like, "Oh, I remember you when you were a child and you had that imaginary friend. Sometimes you had me convinced he was real," that kind of thing. And then, it turns out that she actually knows everything about everything that's going on, and she's been studying it for years, and she's... Oh, Jesus Christ. She's she's like, "After you left, I dedicated my life to figuring out what was going on in that house," that kind of shit. I call her old lady exposition. She basically exists to explain shit to the audience. That's what she's there for.
Fair.
So this is a very paint-by-numbers movie with a terrible first act, a really good second act, and then a mediocre third act that doesn't deliver on the horror as much as you think it would. It is... In fact, sometimes I swear to God it leans more comedy than horror. But when it is trying to be horror, it comes across more thriller than anything.
So, would you say it's a dumpster fire?
No, not at all, because it has enough redeeming qualities to keep it from... I would say it's more like a smoldering garbage can. Anything. Yeah.
What would you put that in a rating?
A 6.5 out of 10. Not bad enough to be a 6, but not good enough to be a 7. It's like just a smidgen above, just a smidgen below average, So on the I would say it's just okay. You know,
Okay.
it's an okay movie, with a lot of flaws, but a few moments that are good. They did stick the landing. I'll give them that. The ending is actually good and kind of funny. So
Okay.
I will give them that. You know, it's a traditional horror ending that there's just like a really fucking funny moment in the ending that I don't want to spoil. So
Okay.
there's actually quite a few moments in the movie that are genuinely funny, but for the most part, it's just like scares that don't land and like honestly the best and probably most intense part of the movie is when Chauncey is fucking around with the older sister's boyfriend because he's like
Okay.
he's tripping out on Molly and so there's moments where Chauncey is like this is actually where one of the good jump scares in the movie is actually right here. So I won't get into it too much, but like that part actually, you know, had some good intense moments and some like, you know, well designed like background imagery and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. But for the most part, this movie, you know, a lot of good horror is more about show, don't tell. Well, this movie doesn't understand that. This movie is all about the tell and it's very loud about it. So,
Okay.
also, it's a movie where there's somehow a lot happening, yet nothing happening at the same time. I don't know how else to
Okay.
explain that, but it seems like there is a lot of shit going on in this movie, but it's a whole lot of nothing burger shit. You know, there's a lot.
Okay.
You know, it's like, you know, teenage drama moments and stuff like that. It's weird because it's a movie. It moves fast. It's a very fast moving movie, very fast paced, but
Uh-huh.
it feels longer than it is.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I don't know how else to explain that. This movie sits in a perpetual oxymoron middle ground, where it somehow both succeeds and fails at being what it set out to be at the same time.
Yeah.
I, you know, uh, and yeah. Oh, I will also say about this movie again, no spoilers, but let's just say very very light on any kind of gore or violence. It is more about or it tries to be more about atmosphere than anything, and it does get that part right sometimes, but um let's say I will also say though the movie definitely teases a lot of buildups that don't pay off,
Mm-hmm.
which is to say, Dead Meat probably won't be doing a kill count on this one. um
Right.
So the movie is surprisingly tame. I wasn't expecting it. It feels almost PG-13 in a way. It's not, but it feels like it should be.
Right.
So, um, but yeah, so a 6.5 on that one. That's all I can really say about it. Some solid acting, some good atmosphere at points, a couple good jump scares, you know, and a good second act, but then everything else around it falls apart.
Okay.
So, you know, it is a movie that is barely being held together by the few pieces of duct tape that make it work. So,
Okay.
all right. So what do you got?
All right. So I'm gonna give a review on a movie first.
Okay.
So I recently watched the new John Cena film Ricky Stenicki. Now, what prompted me to watch this? I heard that John Cena was talking about some stuff in an interview that he did with Howard Stern on Sirius XM. So I watched this interview and he talked like Howard Stern gave this movie nothing but praise. Like he didn't go into too much detail about the humor that's in it, but he said enough for me to be like, yeah, this is definitely something that I could shut my brain off and be like get a good stupid laugh out of. It's so It's also got Zac Efron in it. So I'm gonna read the plot, and then I'm gonna go a little bit further into detail. Not spoiler territory, but some information that's not already out there. Information that's already out there, so it's not necessarily considered spoiler. So, when three
Right.
childhood best friends pull a prank that goes wrong, they invent an imaginary they invent the imaginary Ricky Stenicki to get them out of trouble. 20 years later, they still use the non-existent Ricky as a handy alibi for their immature behavior. So, basically, John Cena's character is the three main protagonists, Zac Efron and the two other guys. Um, the three main actors besides John Cena. John Cena being one of the more, yeah, but no. So basically, John Cena. The three main characters run into John Cena on a trip that they use the name Ricky Stenicki to get out of doing something with their significant others. So they use Ricky Stenicki as an excuse to go off and party. And they run into John Cena's character, who he goes by Rock Hard Rod. And they hire him to be Ricky Stenicki later in the movie. So he basically essentially becomes Ricky Stenicki. But what Rock Hard Rod does, when they meet him, he is an X-rated celebrity impersonator. And when I say X-rated celebrity impersonator, this is what Howard Stern was talking about. He basically impersonates different famous music artists, like uh oh, I think one of them was Michael Jackson. The other was Billy Idol. I think there was Billy Idol was one of them. But he's basically the X-rated version of Weird Al Yankovic. All of his songs are parodies of famous songs, but they're all revolving around masturbation, and he calls them jizz jams.
Oh wow.
It's fucking hilarious.
Okay. Okay.
Alice Cooper was another one.
Weird Al tends to work very clean, so that's
Yeah, no,
definitely,
absolutely no. This was fucking hilarious.
Okay.
And he did a like, John Cena is no impressionist by any means, and he says this in the interview with Howard Stern, but he did a spot on impression of Owen Wilson in this movie. And it was
Damn, okay.
Dude, it was fucking impressive. For someone who's not an impressionist, he did a damn good job doing an impression of Owen Wilson, who, might I add, I believe it is probably one of the more difficult celebrities to impersonate.
Owen Wilson? Nah, you just gotta say,
Wow.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. That's no, that makes sense. Yeah, that was probably one of the easier impressions for him to do. So that's the go-to.
No, I get it though. From an overall thing, there's just that wow joke about Owen Wilson, like getting his overall mannerisms and stuff down. That would be
Yes.
Actually, you want to see a good Owen Wilson impression? Watch the skit, the SNL skit Edward Norton did, where he played Owen Wilson in a horror movie parody.
I think I remember that episode. I think you and I watched that episode together a while ago. I think, didn't we?
I think. Yeah, the joke behind that one was, what if Wes Anderson made a horror movie, and it was called the Midnight Coterie of Sinister Invaders or some shit like that.
I think so. Yeah, I can't. I think so. That was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I remember it though because I remember how spot on Edward Norton's Owen Wilson was.
Mm-hmm.
So, but okay, raunchy comedy like this though, it's got to have some flaws. I'm assuming.
They could have they could have without going into any spoiler territory, what they did was they hired him to be Ricky Stenicki. They hired John Cena to be Ricky Stenicki to go to further their lie.
Right.
They could have he could have stuck around to be the Ricky Stenicki that they all told stories about a little bit longer. So John Cena, he did have eventually a bigger part in the movie, but that would be going into spoiler territory. I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
Fair enough. You're saying that there was
a cutoff
an aspect of
a cutoff point to the ridiculousness of what is Ricky Stenicki.
Okay. Fair enough. What's your rating on this one?
I'd give it an 8, maybe an 8.5.
Okay.
But it was good. I loved it. Loved it. Oh,
8
8
sounds about right for something like that.
Another big name actor that was in this. William H. Macy was in this. I was not expecting to see him in this.
Okay. Okay. I'm just glad you didn't give it like a 9 or a 10.
Definitely no. I know. Definitely, it's good. Yeah, I almost gave it a 9, but then I'm like, they could have done more.
Yeah, plus, as we've said before on this show, sometimes a lower score has nothing to do with a movie doing something wrong so much as it just didn't reach higher heights.
Right.
Sometimes a movie isn't bad, but it's also just okay.
Yeah. I was laughing my ass off, though. It was fucking funny.
Yeah, like when I was just talking about Imaginary, my lower score for that one had to do with actual flaws in the movie.
Yeah.
But I've rated things low. I've rated things like an 8 before, simply because I like them, but I didn't think I didn't think they brought anything new to the table. They were just enjoyable.
Fair enough.
Not like Talk to Me. That brought something new to the table. That one gets a high score for being like super creative and unique. That's where you get the high scores, by being innovative and trying something different.
Yeah.
Or just pulling off something really well. But all right. Well, speaking of trying something different, my next thing it's not a full review because I haven't finished it, just a bit of a singing its praises for now, so giving it a bit of a recommend here, but I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, direct sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, and man, this one is a bit of a jump. So I knew it was going to be something like this because the part of the original game where this takes place is after they leave Midgar and they go into the overworld map and start going to other places. So, of course, in a modern game, that's going to translate into being a more open world thing. So where Remake was a lot more linear because you're inside Midgar the whole time, now you're out in the open world, and there is a lot of open world in this game. So thank God for chocobos, because woof. So yeah, in this one, you're riding your chocobos around, you're getting into fights with monsters. There's a lot of, in the gameplay parts of it, in the open world sections, there's a lot of what I would unfortunately consider Ubisoft bloat. The bunch of busy work check a checklist of icons on the map to go investigate and do.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, you don't have to. You can just go to the next story marker and move the story forward. But you're gonna miss out on a lot of like rewards if you don't do this shit.
Makes sense.
I will say though, some of it feels unnecessary. Like, there's no reason that any game that isn't Assassin's Creed in today's age should be having parts where you climb a tower to unlock more of the map.
Mm-hmm.
That should be an Assassin's Creed thing only at this point. And but that part aside, though, there's a lot to love about Rebirth. They have faithfully recreated so many locations from the original game and moments and important scenes in ways that are absolutely perfect. You know, the way that they brought in the Midgar Summer monster from the original game to fight as a boss battle in this one. The locations that you go to, like Junon and Calm, Costa del Sol, the Gold Saucer, they're all completely faithful recreations of their originals, and they've been expanded, like, gratefully. They're doing different things, a little bit of a different thing with the story here, with the alternate timeline stuff, and including Zack in the story, and they are planting some seeds of mystery that are, I'm hoping, going to lead into something interesting near the end of the game, because this entry in the remake trilogy is set to end where Aerith dies in the original game.
Okay.
Like the original PS1 game. You know, there's a scene where Sephiroth comes down, and as she's trying to use the holy materia to stop him from using the meteor materia, and Sephiroth comes down and stabs her with his long blade through the back, and she drops the materia and dies. But there are that scene, like, that particular scene from the original has already been recreated in Rebirth in a alternate timeline cutscene in the beginning of the game.
Okay.
The game opens, like, just a mild spoiler here, but the game opens with you playing as Zack, returning to Midgar after the events of Crisis Core, and the shit that you see when you're in Midgar, it had my head swimming with so many questions. Like, so many questions. There's a lot of stuff that's happening there that should not be happening unless he's in an alternate timeline.
Fair enough.
And because you see all of this crazy shit in, like, the first 30 minutes of the game that has you thinking, what? Huh? How? When? What? Who? What? Huh? What? And then it fucking cuts back to the main party, picking up right where the last game left off, and they just walk out into the, you know, they're like, smell that fresh air, time for a new adventure, and it doesn't come back to any of the shit from the beginning of the game for literal hours, like, hours upon hours. Like, I am in chapter 6 or 7 right now. I'm about 22 hours in because I've been going out of my way to do everything on the map. Like, I do all of the world intel stuff before moving on. And it still hasn't come back to any of that shit with Zack from the beginning. I still have a million questions that are unanswered 24 hours into the game. So, and I will say this, though, there are a couple of hotel scenes that do kind of, like, scratch that itch a little bit. There's a few moments with Aerith and Red 13 that have me very confused and wondering what the fuck is happening in a certain kind of way, or who the hell someone might actually be. But beyond that, though, it's pretty much followed the exact same story as the original, just added more to it.
Okay.
You know, and obviously, and Yuffie has a bigger role in the story than she did in the original, because in the original game, she was a side character that you could run into randomly. Like, she would pop up as a random battle and steal your materia, and you'd have to fight her, and then if you beat her, you could recruit her. And that's obviously not how it works here. She plays a much bigger role in the story here. but a lot of the same shit that happened in the original happens. They just add more to it. So,
Makes sense.
But considering that they brought back Zack from Crisis Core, and they in the DLC for Remake where you play as Yuffie, they brought in Nero the Sable and Deep Ground from Dirge of Cerberus, and how the three whispers you fight at the end of Remake are supposed to be the remnants of Sephiroth from Advent Children. It's obvious that they're trying to bring the whole. They're trying to streamline the whole timeline together by bringing in aspects of all these other games that weren't in the original.
Okay.
You know, they're just trying to they're trying to streamline the entire franchise by making the Remake trilogy something that you could play through in order to get all the important story beats of all the other games at the same time, more or less, it seems.
Okay.
But that's also why this Remake trilogy works more or less as a sequel to the rest of the franchise. You know, because it's an alternate timeline, alternate take on the original story.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, for the most part, it's still pretty much been the same. There's a part in the original game where you have to infiltrate a Shinra parade in Junon, and in order to do that, you have to dress up in a Shinra costume, and you join the parade and have to do like a little quick time event to perform well on the news, and you get better rewards if you do better.
Mm-hmm.
They completely recreated that entire section for Rebirth in a way that is like very well done, I think, and reminiscent of how the stage dance that you do in Remake at the Honeybee Inn. So, also, I'm not there yet, but I've heard the Gold Saucer in this game is a fucking sight to behold. In the original game, the Gold Saucer was a like casino party town place, like Vegas, basically, that you'd go to and play mini games like chocobo racing and stuff. It's also where you pick up Kate Sith, the animatronic cat riding on a fat Moogle that joins your party. Yeah, some of your party members are animals in Final Fantasy VII, just so you know. Red 13, when you meet him near the end of Remake, he's a talking dog thing. So, yeah, he's kind of like a mixture of a wolf and a lion with fire at the end of his tail.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's really cool. He's a guest party member in Remake, but in Rebirth, he's a fully controllable party member, part of your whole lineup. So, anyways, though, not super far in, but basically, I think they've done a really good job recreating the whole thing. It does get a little fan servicey with Tifa and Aerith, not gonna lie. They are definitely winking and nodding at the camera quite a bit on that. There's a whole scene in Costa del Sol where Cloud sees both of them in their beach outfits and gets a little embarrassed and flustered.
Okay.
So, yeah. And the game definitely has you like it has a relationship mechanic where you sometimes can talk to your party members and either strengthen or weaken your relationship with them based off the answers you give to the things they say. And this will lead to something later in the game that I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't played the original. It will lead to something later at the Gold Saucer, but I will say the game definitely has a Tifa and Aerith are both best friends, but also simultaneously fighting for Cloud's affection at the same time. You know, there's like a love triangle thing going on there.
That makes sense. I could definitely.
Yeah.
I already get that vibe from how far I've gotten into Remake.
And you'll see it even more when Aerith rejoins the party and meets Tifa later in that game. So.
Yeah, no, the last thing I remember playing in Remake was I was doing some running around with Aerith.
Oh, okay. So you've played more since the last time you talked about it.
Yes, I have.
So you did the Airbuster boss battle, fell from the catwalk into Aerith's church, and then fought Reno, and
Yep.
then now you're okay.
Yes,
Isn't
sir.
Reno isn't Reno basically just Axel from Kingdom Hearts?
Yep. Uh
Like
huh. Uh huh. Absolutely.
same vibes, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So okay, that means you're liking it. I'm glad. I'm glad.
Yeah, no, I do like it. Yes.
You're far enough in right now, so okay, so yeah, this will be interesting. So anyways, yeah, a strong recommend for Rebirth from me. It's just that I will say this game has so many fucking mini games in it and so much open world shit, and it's got a pattern. There's like, first you're in a small town and you're doing stuff in the town. Then you go out and it's a big open world, huge map with all these shit to do, towers to climb, monsters to fight, things to find, yada yada. And I am doing everything on the map before moving on to the next area, and
Makes sense.
getting all the summons, doing all the side quests, doing all the world intel, and then you go to another small area, like maybe you go through a cave or into another town. It's very much like the classic Final Fantasy games where you have the big open overworld map where the random battles take place and all that, and then you go like inside a cave or inside a town and the camera zooms down and it's more detailed and you're now in a smaller area where there's still random battles, but it's not like
Mm-hmm.
the overworld map. And it's got the same shit, vehicles, chocobos, all that traversal. Different colored chocobos have different abilities, like the black ones climb walls, the green ones fly, shit like that.
Now,
Because I remember what's that?
are there chocobos in remake?
There are, but since it takes place in Midgard, they only serve. There's a side quest you can do later where if you find all of them, you unlock a bunch of fast travel points in the Sector 7 slums.
Okay.
So you can use them to fast travel back and forth between different quests in that area and
That
stuff
makes sense.
when you
Okay.
do. But no, in Rebirth, you're riding the chocobos like horses through the open world,
Oh
and you
damn.
can once you unlock them, you can summon them anytime you're in an open world area.
Nice.
But in areas that have special chocobos, you will have to unlock that area's chocobo before you can use it, and
That
that
makes
requires
sense.
doing a little bit of a stealth mission where you sneak up on the chocobo and wrangle it and tame it. Um, but there are different things. In the original game, you had to get a gold chocobo in order to get to one of the secret bosses and get the best summon, the Knights of the Round. And that also took, like, a lot of work. You had to do a lot of shit to get a gold chocobo in the
Yeah.
original. So, I'm glad they kind of streamlined it for this. I don't think we'll reach gold chocobo levels by the end of this game, though. I think they're going to save that for the third entry.
Makes sense.
I'm excited to see now that the whispers aren't part of the story anymore. The driving force for the narrative is basically they're trying to stop Sephiroth from destroying the planet, and in order to find Sephiroth, they're following the creepy robed guys, the ones from like you met one of them at the hotel you stayed at. Tifa introduced you to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are basically ex-soldiers that have succumbed to Mako poisoning, and that's just so now they're just basically they're that world's equivalent of homeless veterans, more or
Okay.
less. And so in Rebirth, they're all traveling in a group together towards Sephiroth. They're like being summoned to him, so the party is following them in order to find him. And that's so they kind of serve as a replacement for the Whispers in this game as the thing that kind of like keeps the party on track, hitting all the same locations they did in the original game, more or less.
Okay.
So
I
Yeah,
had to
so
I,
a su-
I had to giggle when you said Mako poisoning because I was listening to this is a little off topic, but I was listening to Fortress of Nerditude, and when Spencer went to go read your email, he said something about you being Mako. You were suffering from Mako poisoning.
oh yeah. Yes, that was funny.
Uh,
Um
I love that I get that reference now.
Yeah, there you go. So Rebirth is a solid entry in the remake trilogy. My only other complaint with it is um performance mode, and they are working on a patch to fix this, but performance mode in this game looks like shit. I
Okay.
it, I want to play the game at 60 frames. I do because I care about the frame rate, but I can't play this one in performance mode because it makes the game extremely blurry and hard to look at. It's
No, that makes
very
sense.
ugly in performance mode. The sacrifice, the hit is too much. I will say though that uh quality mode, it looks really good, but unfortunately it's 30 frames, so when I turn the camera it's like ugh, I notice it. If they added a little motion blur to it, it would be fine. I wish they would add a little motion blur, then it would be fine.
Yeah.
Um but besides that, and this game also has a really addictive card game in it too called Queen's Blood that I always make sure I beat every opponent in every area before moving on to for that, because that game, and there are parts of the story where you have to play it, but you don't have to win to move forward. You can actually forfeit and skip ahead. So
Makes
that's
sense.
so it's nice that that's an option. It will change the cutscenes and like your relationship with some of the characters if you do that, but at the same time, it won't affect the main overall story beats.
Yeah.
Just some of the stuff that happens around it. There are some cutscenes that happen differently, even in side quests. There's one side quest in Costa del Sol where you have to play mini games on a date with one of the characters, one of the others, and you don't have to win those mini games in order to move on. If you lose them and say you don't want to try again, it'll just move on anyways, and the other characters will like talk about how you failed, but it won't make you restart. You just keep going. You just
Makes
live with it.
sense.
So, you know, so I appreciate that to an extent. I like that aspect of it. So it's a solid recommend so far, just with a few caveats. Just there are it made a lot of improvements over remake, but then there's also like some things that it does it's kind of like there are some aspects of it that are a little bit tedious, but the open world stuff kind of feels a little bloaty and busy work, and the graphics issues and all that, but otherwise it's a solid entry so far. So I'm only maybe a little under halfway through it, but I'm really enjoying it so far.
Okay.
All right, what else you got?
So I started playing this game, and this one's I was so excited for this because the pre-order I pre-ordered the 40 Years of WrestleMania edition of WWE 2K24, and it came out on, so because I ordered the highest tier, I got 3 days early access. So I got to start playing it on Tuesday. Anybody who pre-ordered the standard edition had to wait until the 8th, so yesterday. I got on, and I with basically in a day, because I came home from work the night that the morning that it dropped, and I immediately booted up my PlayStation, started playing, and then I got some sleep after a little while, and when I woke up, I got up and I started playing it again. But I basically in a day, with a break in between, beat the undisputed My Rise section of this of the story. So there's three separate three separate stories. So there's the My Rise Undisputed. So basically, this was an original story that they put together for this game. So basically, the story that I beat, you create your character, and your character is put into a tournament for the undisputed world heavyweight, the undisputed WWE championship, the WWE Universal Championship, because Roman Reigns decided that this is public knowledge, so this isn't spoilery anywhere. Basically, he goes off and follows in the footsteps of his cousin, The Rock, in Hollywood. So he relinquishes his title out of nowhere. And your Myri's character that you create your own character has to fight through all of these different obstacles to basically break Roman's record. Roman's record, I think, was something along the lines of over 12,000 days as WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. And by the end of the story, you basically successfully beat Roman's record by beating the record holder himself.
Okay.
Yeah, it basically all comes full circle, and it's a really fucking cool story. And there's certain things in the storyline that basically, for anybody that listens to this and wants to play this, I won't mention the other things that are in that MyRise specific that specific MyRise story, because it's interesting. It is definitely interesting for sure. I've never, like, out of all of the 2K games that I've never put any effort into any of the MyRise stories until this one. Because I heard and I read that there was going to be an original idea for the MyRise, and I'm like, this sounds really interesting. Especially considering what's going on right now with the Bloodline and Cody Rhodes and all this good shit. I really wanted to see what it was all about. So I played it and beat it. Basically in a day with a break in between.
Wow.
But there's
Okay.
there's also the 40 years of WrestleMania showcase. So basically you're playing all of the most noteworthy WrestleMania matches spanned across 40 years. And
Okay.
you're given these objectives, and you have to do certain moves and do certain things with your opponent, and then it cuts into the actual match. Like it transitions from video game graphics to WWE, like, television stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's really fucking cool. It tells the story of what's going on in the and the narrator for the WWE WrestleMania showcase is my favorite announcer on the announce team, Corey Graves. But I've gotten past the first one. I'm having a bit of a hard time with the Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant match.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that one was one of the more iconic ones, because that one happened at WrestleMania 3, and that happened shortly before Andre the Giant passed away.
Ah, wow.
Yes.
So these story modes are like recreating
History.
actual
Recreating actual matches
things.
that happened.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now the pre-order special, it came with a couple of different it came with a couple like bundles for already DLC packs. It came with the the Nightmare Family pack, which consists of Dusty Rhodes, Elite Cody Rhodes, which is basically Cody Rhodes as an action figure, but the version of Cody Rhodes that this is specifically the Cody Rhodes that faced Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell match a couple years ago. He came out and he had a torn pec, and the bruise that was on Cody's pectoral muscle leading into his bicep was one of the more gruesome injuries I've seen. Like, the only reason he was medically cleared to fight with that injury was because, yes, it hurts. And I watched the Cody Rhodes American Nightmare documentary on Peacock, so I'm coming into this with already known facts. He, yes, while it hurts, it he could not injure it further. So that was the only reason he was medically cleared to fight with that injury. But by the time, like, Cody Rhodes is not a like huge dude. By the time this match was over, his bicep was as big as John Cena's. And John Cena's got some pretty big biceps.
Okay.
He was pretty swollen during that match, and that when I watched that match, I had a hard time watching it. I can only imagine the crowd in Chicago that had to watch that match live and in person.
Right.
Dude.
I have to ask, as a video game, mechanically, how does this hold up to its predecessors?
Oh, this is by far the better of the 2K games, because there's a new mechanic that they introduced with this one, and that is it's a blow to basically you're basically taking turns punching each other, and you have like this you have to push X down at a certain time, otherwise you miss the opportunity to basically have the upper hand in this. Basically you're
okay.
You have to put, yeah, it's basically your blow for blow. You're hitting each other back and forth, and you have to press X at a certain time to beat the mini game. But it's really cool. I really like it.
Okay.
There was a surprise
ask,
character. There was a surprise playable character that I was actually. I haven't played as him yet, but I did 2 book reports on this guy when I was younger. One in grade school and again in high school. Yes, I plagiarized my own book report. I recycled I used the same fucking book report for my fucking high school report. I did a book report on Muhammad Ali. This...
Oh, okay.
It was actually really cool to see Muhammad Ali in this game as a playable character.
Yeah, isn't he a boxer?
Yeah.
That's like...
Yeah, no, he's from my understanding, he has made appearances with the WWE years in the past.
Okay. So I was gonna ask if there was like any changes you liked, any changes you didn't like, but I think you pretty much answered
No,
that.
yeah, absolutely. No, this game and oh, and I was glad to see that they have each and every version minus Husky Harris because that wasn't that would actually would have been nice to see Husky Harris in this game too. That was a variation of Bray Wyatt. He
Okay.
was Husky Harris before he was Bray Wyatt. Um, but there is each and every version of Bray Wyatt that has been in existence in the WWE besides Husky Harris, including but not limited to the Eater of Worlds Bray Wyatt, Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, Muscle Man Bray Wyatt from the WrestleMania 36 36 30
Damn.
or
Okay.
37 match from the Firefly Funhouse match that he did with John Cena. This was WrestleMania back in 2020 when they had absolutely they had WrestleMania with absolutely no live audience. Um and then you also got my personal favorite, the Fiend Bray Wyatt. Um That's actually part of reason. That's actually the Fiend is actually part of my gamer tag. The vaping fiend. That's the whole.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
okay.
that's where I. That's yeah that that
Well, there you
my
go.
username comes from that. Um, but they also got the Bray Wyatt that came back at Extreme Rules. He came back at Extreme Rules at the very end of Extreme Rules 2022. And I haven't I haven't heard anything like rock solid, but from my understanding they're going to be they're going to be inducting him into the Hall of Fame. It's not set in stone. I haven't heard anything specifically from the WWE, but a lot of the sources that I'm hearing it from are reliable, and I'm going to be extremely upset if it's not true.
Okay.
Cause we're creeping up on WrestleMania. It's happening on is happening. What? WrestleMania is happening sometime in April. Like I think it's a Saturday and a Sunday.
Okay.
So I'm gonna end up having to watch night one of WrestleMania after I get home from work on that Saturday.
So this is a so this game is obviously a strong recommend from you then.
Absolutely, it is. Yes.
All right. Well, I did have a third thing, but looking at it now, I think for the sake of time and also because it's something that I haven't seen much of yet, so I want to wait until I've seen more of it so I can say more on it. I'm going to put a pin in my third thing and save it for another episode. But so instead, in this last spot, then, because the third thing you had that I know of is important, so let's do a joint entry on that
Yes.
instead.
Yeah. So this last thing that I had, um, recently, we lost a great animator, creator of the Dragon Ball series, Akira Toriyama. I have a lot of memories when it comes to Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z. Like one of the first things I remember having to do with Dragon Ball Z is my friends in 4th grade had showed me like a drawing that they did, and showed me how they did it. So I'm like, there was basically basically an outlined drawing on tissue paper traced over another picture. So my mom ended up getting me the one, like a legitimate Dragon Ball Z tracing picture book when I was a kid, and I drew a picture of Gohan, Vegeta, and Goku. I think all three of them were together in one picture, and that was my first memory with Dragon Ball Z.
I remember watching episodes of it on
Mm-hmm.
Toonami on Cartoon Network in the
That
afternoons.
too.
Is both mostly my memories in regards to it. Yeah,
I
that was before Toonami was exclusively a Adult Swim
Yeah.
thing. That was like because now the anime they play on Toonami, not all of it, but a lot of it is a little more adult leaning,
Mm-hmm.
like like My Hero
Mm-hmm.
Academia and stuff like that. But Dragon Ball Z was definitely a more kid friendly one. At least the
Yeah,
American version.
absolutely.
The American version was, anyways. I'm
I
to
can't say the
understand.
same about the abridged.
Yeah, yeah,
Dragon Ball Z abridged was fucking hilarious.
yeah. That's the one that had more like nudity and stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Cartoon Network. Um, Back in the days, Kira Toriyama, very, very sad. I distinctly remember. I think when I was watching it on the regular on Toonami those days, it was when they were doing
Mm-hmm.
the Majin Buu storyline and the Frieza
Okay.
storyline. They did those two.
Okay.
I remember those.
Now this is an unpopular opinion, but I like and it was it holds up because he was he had a hand in it. It was from his creation. Dragon Ball Evolution, the movie. It was I really enjoyed the movie. It's like one of my favorite live action adaptations of an anime. It's an unpopular opinion because it got a lot of hate when it came out. I liked it because Goku isn't. I'm guessing it's from my understanding is because Goku wasn't played by a buff enough guy. He was played by Justin Chatwin, who is also in one of my favorite shows, Shameless. Bulma is played by Emmy Rossum, who is also in Shameless. So that was cool seeing them played together in Dragon Ball Evolution and then again in Shameless. So that was pretty cool. I really like this movie. It's an unpopular opinion, but I really liked it.
Okay. Yeah, he was a
Yeah.
consultant on that movie, so
Yeah.
but definitely a sad loss.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
May he rest in peace. So,
Absolutely. Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
but with all that being said, I say that this will be a good time for us to move on to the topic.
Yes.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
All right, everyone, welcome to this episode's topic, which is all about our favorite villains. The villains you hate,
Yeah.
the villains you love to hate, and or the villains you just love. In general, period, overall, from different things and different stuff. We'll talk about a bunch of them, but we'll do some deep dives and some psychological dissecting of a few of them. Some of the more interesting ones for sure. But anyways, so Nick, when I mention, some of the most best or most popular villains of all time across all media, what do you think of immediately?
See, one of my favorite villains that comes to mind. It's got to be the Joker.
Indeed.
I love absolute, and more specifically, Heath Ledger's Joker.
I would say just the Joker overall. Every iteration of him
Joker
has,
overall, yeah,
has something to offer for sure.
Absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely, yes.
I definitely think though that Mark Hamill's Joker is definitely my favorite portrayal, both from the animated series and the Batman Arkham games.
Okay.
I like how sometimes Joker's origin story is that he fell into a vat of acid and went crazy, and other times
Yes.
he has no origin, and it's a complete mystery. And
Yeah.
I do enjoy that. I like that even in the Robert Pattinson Batman movie, we got like a potential Joker.
A variation.
Yeah.
A variation of Joker, yeah.
Like something that could become more in another movie. And keep in mind too that movie takes place in Batman's early years when he's still young and figuring his shit out. He's not quite good at this yet because he's early in, which is very in line with the Batman Arkham Origins video game, or the Batman Year One comics. So he's still like a little wet behind the ears, I guess you could say, is what they call it. Because I mean, Batman becomes badass eventually, but he wasn't always badass. He was still learning in the beginning. He was trained by professional assassins and ninjas, but like in his early years as the Dark Knight, he made a lot of mistakes. Like that's canon. He was prone to mistakes. So and still does sometimes, but this ain't about him though. This is about his frenemy, nemesis, potential love
Joker.
interest, the Joker. No.
When they did the Joker movie,
Joaquin Phoenix.
dude, yes, I fucking loved it, dude. And I am excited. I am excited for the sequel. The Joaquin Phoenix coming back to play the Joker, and it'll be interesting to see her as Harley Quinn, but Lady Gaga is going to be portraying Harley Quinn in the Joker 2.
I think one of the great things about the Joker is that he's just pure chaos incarnate, and for him,
yes,
there really is no method to the madness or any reason for it, truly. He just wants to do bad things because it's fun. That's it. Like,
right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. He's a menace.
And and it's like one of the world.
He's toxic in every sense of the word.
One of Arkham's best psychologists couldn't even break him, and in fact, the opposite happened. He broke her, and she became his sidekick. Like,
pretty fucking much.
Because
Arlene Quinzel,
even though he very clearly has a multitude of psychological disorders, absolutely none of them can be cured. He is irredeemable. There is nothing that can be done about how far he has fallen from reality. Like,
mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's hard to tell. is he truly insane, or is he just playing insane? And that's the other thing too. Is he so off his rocker that it circles back to him actually being sane and in full control of all his actions and just doing it because he is genuinely evil, or does he actually live in a delusion, a psychosis delusion, where all of this is like fun to him? You know what I mean? Is he a psychopath or a sociopath? That's the question.
Right.
What do you think?
I think a little bit of both. I think he might be a little bit of both.
Like, what's your Joker headcanon? Is he a victim of mental illness, or is he just genuinely evil?
It all depends on how you look at it, though. It all depends on how you look at it. Because if you look at it from the Joaquin Phoenix perspective, Joaquin Phoenix made the Joker... They gave it a little bit more of a...
They gave him humanity.
Yeah, they really did. Mental health played a huge part in the Joker movie.
Right.
And I like the way that they did that. But in all of the other Joker portrayals, you don't see that part. That's the one part that you don't see. In all of the other portrayals, he's just genuinely evil.
In a lot of ways, but even then there's some subtle differences, right? So the Heath Ledger Joker is more of an anarchist agent of chaos, whereas the Mark Hamill Joker is more of just like a wacky, insane, like psychotic clown. You know what I mean? He's more of a, like, Heath Ledger's Joker is more of a eat popcorn while watching the world burn, and like
pretty much.
And Mark Hamill's Joker is more of like dancing in the middle of the fire while it's burning. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah.
And I do love that. His portrayal of the Arkham games was absolutely fantastic, by the way. Arkham Origins, he's played by Troy Baker, who also did a good job, but Mark Hamill's Joker, voice-wise, to me, just can't be beat.
Right. No, definitely.
He is the Joker. His voice is like the iconic, like, go-to for anyone trying to play like a comedic crazed villain. It's all got that like wacky like tee ha 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 kind of thing to it. Those are my favorite kinds of villains. So like, on that same note, I'm going to transition into a very similar villain, which, by the way, Epic Rap Battles of History did a rap battle between these two. Pennywise the Clown from the It franchise.
Okay.
Specifically the Bill Skarsgård version from the remakes, because he is so good at it. He's so good. And fun fact, Bill Skarsgård actually can do a lazy eye, like for real. Like he can make one of his eyes move opposite from the other one. So
really?
Yeah, so there are moments in the movie where Pennywise, one of his eyes goes in a different direction, and it's like really creepy and shit. And they didn't know he could do that for real, so he actually like scared the kids on set when he did that while they were recording.
Oh, that's amazing. He probably purposely didn't tell them that he could do that, so he could get a real reaction out of the kids.
Yes, I love it. I love it so much.
That is amazing. No, I need to watch.
You need to give those movies another chance. Yeah, Pennywise. My favorite.
That's definitely on my list of things.
My favorite kind of villains, like my absolute favorite kind of villains, are what I could only describe as the unholy hell child of an evil version of Bugs Bunny and the Genie put together. And Lord. So I'm talking wisecracking, physics-defying, fourth wall breaking, shape-shifting, goofy-ass, but super evil villains. And Pennywise fits that bill perfectly because Pennywise is the name of the clown, but it is actually an alien entity from outer space that can shapeshift, and it eats children. And its chosen form just so happens to be Pennywise most of the time, but it can turn into whatever you're scared of most, which changes depending on the kid that it's haunting. So,
Oh, geez. Okay, that
So-
makes sense.
so it can become like a leper, and it does, or like one of the kids is really scared of this creepy lady in a painting, so it becomes that lady in some scenes. It's very
So
good.
He's essentially one of the killer clowns from outer space.
More or less, yeah. But in fact, there's a whole connected Stephen King universe with the Dark Tower series and Dreamcatcher, where
Yeah, I did
at
hear
one
about that.
point, at one point, the main character in the Dark Tower series visits a planet, I think, where the It alien came from, and there's a lot of them there. That particular entity, because its true form,
Okay.
I think you see in the second movie near the end.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so Bill Skarsgård did a fantastic job. He's always great. He's always great. I don't care what he's in. I know that people are making fun of his look in the new Crow remake, but I think he's gonna be good. It's the costume wasn't his choice. That's not on him. I think he's gonna be good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've seen pictures too, and I'm interested in seeing the Crow remake.
The way he
So
portrays
long as history doesn't repeat itself.
Yeah. The way he portrays Pennywise, though, is absolutely solid. It's funny and creepy at the same time, and he absolutely hits that, like, comedic villain that still gives you the willies. Like, the best moments in all those movies are when he's on the screen, for sure.
Yeah.
And he's just like a good example is when they're having flashbacks to moments with him in the second movie that you didn't see in the first movie because he haunted them for a while, but one of them is the kid who used to be fat when he was young and had a crush on the girl Beverly, and Pennywise played on that to scare him. And he's in the school and he runs from him and hides in the locker, and then Pennywise is in there with him. He looks over and he sees him there, and Pennywise is like, "Kiss me, fat boy," It's the voice too. He's like, he always talks like this. It's fucking creepy and funny at the same time. It's so weird and I love it. Bill Skarsgård did perfect. And if you have not seen the epic rap battles of history, the Joker versus Pennywise, that is by far one of the best ones they've ever done.
Okay.
The imitations of both characters are extremely on point. Nice Peter plays Joker and Epic Lloyd plays Pennywise, and the voices are perfect. Like, they got him down perfect. That's one of the few rap battles where they managed to get both the portrayals of the characters correctly while simultaneously flowing and keeping with the beat. There are some times where they prioritize the character portrayal and it doesn't come across very well lyrically, but like it doesn't flow very well as a rap, especially with more like growly characters and shit like that. But Joker versus Pennywise, they did a really good job on that one. So, but yeah, when I said what came to mind first, I'm surprised you didn't say Darth Vader.
I mean, Darth Vader is up there, but the Joker...
Yeah, the Joker is probably one of the most iconic villains of all time.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
But Darth Vader too, actually. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
We gotta talk about him because he's got a very complicated past, and granted, the prequel movies kind of made him look like a whiny child, but he's like, man, I just really hate sand. But to be fair, though, he did have a tragic childhood. He grew up basically a slave, and then
Little Annie.
Yeah, and then his mom died to the Tusken Raiders, and he had to he had to put up with so much, and then of course because he because he had trouble controlling his anger, the Jedi Council got super pompous and kind of like denied him his right to power, and of
Mm-hmm.
course there was the philosophy and all that. Now granted, he was manipulated by Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious, but that
Uh-huh.
was
Sure
that
was.
was but at the same time my man did have some anger issues, and that shit. See,
Yeah.
this is why you go to therapy, kids, so you don't turn into Darth Vader. Um,
That. All
because
of that.
yes, yes, this is why you listen to your therapist, not Uncle Palpatine who's saying, yes, suppress your feelings with alcohol, you know. Uh, so
Execute Order 66.
right, but but yeah, yeah. Execute Order 69. I mean 66. The other one. That's something else for another time. And some robot chicken shit. Uh, anyways, though, complicated villain as he is, and Vader also. Let's not forget he destroyed the home planet that his daughter's from.
Yeah.
Complicated as he is, though, he definitely redeems himself by the end of the sixth movie.
Yes.
You know, after everything. And I would say that there are other interesting villains in throughout the Star Wars franchise besides him, too. They don't get a lot of screen time in the movies, but throughout things like the animated series and extended lore, they definitely do. Like Count Dooku,
Mhm.
also known as Darth Tyrannus, and General Grievous, who was in the third movie as the multiple lightsaber wielding cyborg. That coughed a lot. General Kenobi, you know, that
Yes.
guy.
Mhm.
Let's see who else.
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, yeah, definitely Darth Maul, who gets kind of he does make a comeback in the animated series and the Han Solo movie, I think. So,
Okay.
I don't know how he survived being chopped in half and falling down a shaft, but something happened. So, uh,
Okay.
and you know what's crazy about Darth Maul? He's from the planet Dathomir, and you actually visit that planet in the Jedi games, Fallen Order and Survivor. Um,
Ooh.
and in fact, in Jedi Survivor, you are you kind of have a sort of romantic relationship with a Dathomirian girl. So
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting.
Very
Um,
interesting.
yeah, I love the extended lore stuff in the Star Wars universe. I'd have to say, beside the other probably most popular villains from the Star Wars franchise are Jango Fett, Boba Fett, and Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt. Can't forget Jabba the Hutt.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you got
You know,
your like Star Wars parodies like Spaceballs and Pizza the Hut.
oh God, yeah, yeah. Jabba's not a very complex character though. He's like the space slums version of like a mob boss,
Yeah,
basically, is all he is.
pretty
He's like,
much.
you've come to me on the day of my daughter's quinceañera. Um, so,
Let's see.
um,
Another villain that I wanted to talk about. One of my all-time favorite shows, ran for 15 seasons, Supernatural. And one of my favorite villains from this show. He's one of those villains who you love to hate because he's so fucking funny, but at the same time, he's evil as shit. Crowley.
yes, good old Crowbar. Love him.
Yes. I love Mark Shepard. He's so fucking funny.
Mr. Double Edge or Mr. Double Agent Demon Man.
Yes.
And, the back and forth between him and Castiel.
Fucking hilarious.
Yes, I love it. I love how that show complicates things in such a way that you can have good demons and bad angels, and vice versa.
Pretty much.
There is no
nothing's off limits.
There were good and bad on both sides, 100%.
Sure was.
I loved Crowley's little stint as the King of Hell too. That was fun.
Yeah.
He's one of those complicated characters for sure that has he's definitely like playing whatever side gets him to the top. He's one of those villains that's willing to work with the heroes only when it works to his advantage. But the moment he gets his way, he'll turn right around and stab them in the back, quite literally sometimes. But let's see here. So Crowley is definitely one of those complicated villains that, like I said, he's in it for whatever benefits him the most.
Yeah.
And those are like the Weasley next to like the goofy cartoony ones. I would say that Crowley is like the Crowley style, the Weasley smooth talking, I can talk my way out of anything because I'm super smart style is probably my second favorite kind. I think we're like basically an evil version of Saul Goodman.
Yes. Absolutely.
That's what I would like.
Yes.
To look at it like, on that same note of double agents, I'd have to say then one of my favorite villains from the Kingdom Hearts franchise, who is technically, he is only a villain for a while and then he becomes good later, but Axel, or Lee, from the Kingdom Hearts games.
Okay.
In fact, I think the overall Organization 13 is probably just one of my favorite villainous organizations in any story ever. Just because how they go about it. I like them as villains overall more than I do the overall series villain, Xehanort, just because I think he's just traditional cartoon Disney evil, but
yeah.
The organization is complicated because they're not not all of them anyway. Some of them are pure evil because they're secretly working for Xehanort, but the others, they just want to be real people again, and they're just trying to do what they can to get to that goal. And, not all of them, especially Roxas, are bad people. They just want to live. They just want to be friends and have a life and do things. But the thing is, they unfortunately have to sometimes do unethical shit to reach this goal.
Yeah.
And it's a morally complicated, ambiguous gray area, which unfortunately our heroes have to step in and take them down because of. Since I'm on video games too, circling back just a tiny bit to the cartoony fourth wall breaking evil Bugs Bunny style villains and shit. Monokuma from the Danganronpa franchise.
Okay.
Which, to avoid spoilers, I won't say who's actually behind him, but before they extend the lore and there's multiple Monokumas and a war going on outside and all that, the original concept in the very first game was that he was an evil cartoon bear overseeing this killing game in a high school, and he is one of the funniest villains I think ever, because he's so nonchalant and happy about all of this. Even when he's telling them that they're all gonna die and stuff, he's just got a very carefree tee-hee-hee ha-ha-ha attitude about it. It's very much if Bugs Bunny decided to become genocidal.
Jesus.
He even does that. He's got that shit where, he can break the laws of physics. He breaks the fourth wall and talks to the audience a lot. He does things he'll make a clone of himself that pops out so that they'll both be talking at the same time, or
Yeah.
he can summon like uh visual um visual aids for whatever he's talking about.
Uh-huh.
During the anime, when he's telling them that they have to kill each other in order to leave the school, he's like, I don't care how you do it. He's like, you can impale each other, electrocute, blah blah blah. And then as he's saying each of these things, they're happening to him, like in an animated form that he's showing, as an example. So that's what I mean. And
Okay.
I fucking love these kinds of villains because they're funny and complex, and of course he is just a robot being controlled by someone else who's actually behind this, but the way he's being portrayed is very well done, and he's just one of those villains. It's like super iconic. Like when people think Danganronpa, the first thing that comes to mind is Monokuma. Like he is
Okay.
the most memorable aspect of every game. Like he's a very popular icon in Japan, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's Monokuma merch you can get too, much like you can buy like Bendy dolls. You can buy Monokuma
Right.
dolls too. Yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, that's what happens when you make a visual novel game that is basically an anime version of Saw meets the Hunger Games. So,
Right.
and you make your villain basically the Japanese version of an evil Bugs Bunny. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fucking perfect, and I absolutely, absolutely love it. So you're a Harry Potter guy. Why don't you talk about Voldemort?
Oh, the one who basically played a game of I got your nose with a baby and lost.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man.
Yeah, let's examine Voldemort's complicated history and why did he become evil? Is he a tragic villain who was a victim of circumstance? Is he truly evil? Evil? Are there any redeeming qualities?
I mean,
Like
he was trying to kill a child.
this is true. This is true, but why? What led to this? You can
I
spoil the
don't
shit out
know.
of this. It's Harry Potter.
I honestly, I never really got in that far deep into the lore of it.
Don't they tell you this in the movies?
Maybe it's just been a while since I've watched any of them.
So, from what I
It's
understand, it was because Voldemort believed in a prophecy that stated Harry would be the one to defeat him. So he was trying to kill him before that could happen. Basically, the prophecy said that Harry would grow up to defeat him, and he was trying to, stop that before it could happen.
That makes sense.
So in this case, not a tragic villain at all, but rather a egomaniac who's was afraid their plans would be foiled by a child and tried to straight up murder a baby in order to get away with their evil plans. So
And then he
not
kind of
redeemable.
no, definitely not. No, you try and kill a baby in my book, you're walking piece of human trash.
The prophecy also mentioned that the chosen one would be born to parents who defied Voldemort 3 times, which applied to both the Potters and the Longbottoms.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Harry's scar caused by Voldemort's failed attempt to kill him not only marked him, but also made him a Horcrux and gave him a connection to Voldemort's mind.
Sure did, and every time Voldemort is nearby, it's basically Harry's version of his Spidey sense. Only he's sensing that Voldemort is nearby.
And so we've talked a little bit about some characters who, I mean, we've talked about a few different ones actually. But there are some, but a lot of the ones that we've talked about so far have been more like people who are pure evil, with a few exceptions. There were a few
Yeah.
exceptions in there, but it's mostly just chaotic evil, like obsessed with despair, obsessed with chaos, just want to watch the world burn, or just, just vile, irredeemable people.
Now,
Like I
I
said,
will say,
with a few exceptions, like Darth Vader was redeemable, for example.
I am a Gryffindor by choice and by selection in by statistics in the Wizarding World, the Pottermore website.
Right.
I am a Gryffindor, but I also see the other side of Draco Malfoy. Draco Malfoy is his father is evil. So therefore he only ever knew how to be he only ever he's a victim of at least my opinion, victim of circumstance.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. What about
Miss
Snape?
Snape?
Yeah,
I
because
honestly I don't think
was
he was
kind
ever
of a. There's a lot
he,
of arguments to whether or not he is a villain. A lot of people think that he did things that are irredeemable.
there was okay,
But
so yeah, there was a lot of things that he did that was irredeemable. But again, maybe I may be wrong here, but I'm gonna go out on a limb. But I wouldn't say victim of circumstance. Just he was in love. He was in love.
tragic villain? Oh,
Tragic
okay.
villain. He was in love with Lily Potter, Harry's mom. And the whole reason he was such a dick to Harry is because he was pissed that it wasn't his son.
Okay. So, on that note, then, that's what I want us to examine next is tragic villains. And in order
Okay.
to help us understand what that is, I'm going to read this you know what the fuck I'm trying to say. This,
Yes.
this...
An excerpt?
Yes, this passage from TV Tropes, that explains it. And it says, the tragic villain is a particular deconstruction of the villain. It's a tragic villain is completely aware of their evil, but takes little to no pleasure from it. In fact, they could very well resent the evil they are committing. Rather, they were driven to villainy due to circumstances beyond their control. In many circumstances, they are the tragic monster. Think Frankenstein's monster.
Severus Snape.
Perhaps an innocent person transformed into a mindless monster or simply created to be one. Either way, they have no choice in the evil acts they commit and are as sympathetic as their victims, or maybe a hero was forced to commit a necessary evil, and occasionally any kind of villainy against their will, and never forgave themselves, deciding they were now a villain beyond hope, not deserving of salvation or redemption, possibly becoming a Death Seeker in the process. So, this is Riku in the first Kingdom Hearts.
I would agree with that, yes.
Sora's friend Riku. This is Riku in the first Kingdom Hearts for sure. He, opens his heart to the darkness, but you can tell by the end of the game, not only does he regret his actions once he sees the truth of what's happening, but he also completely redeems himself as well.
Yeah.
And then he later goes on to wield the powers of light and darkness in equal measure as a sort of middle ground anti-hero, like a more of a vigilante, whereas Sora is more of the traditional sparkling, like, goody two-shoes, good Samaritan hero guy. Riku is more of a morally ambiguous, like, complicated, like, where if Sora is Superman, then Riku is Batman.
Okay.
As is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I would consider that he was a villain. He's not anymore, but that falls under the tragic The tragic villain trope for sure. And you said Snape
Snape.
falls under that too.
I would, but I would think
also,
so. Yeah.
I would also consider Darth Vader
Yeah.
to be part of that.
Yeah. I could agree with that 100%. Yeah.
So let's see. Who else can you think of?
That would be considered a tragic villain. I'm not sure.
How about the lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield one, Dr. Connors?
Yeah.
After losing his right arm, he tries to develop a cure that will make him regain the limb as well as cure every illness on Earth. He only injects himself with it after his superiors threaten to use unwitting war veterans as human trials. It's his willingness to spare them the pain, as well as his desire to simply be whole again, that directly causes his face turn into a monster.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Harvey Dent.
Yes, Harvey Dent, absolutely.
Two-Face.
Absolutely.
Two-Face.
Victim of a
Yes.
fire of and the deformity and the psychological damage it did to him. And
Yep.
I mean, dude, we could do a whole episode on just Batman villains alone, and like
Yeah, we could.
the psychology behind them, especially because I just replayed the Arkham games again recently, and there's so many rogues gallery, like Hush, the guy who goes around cutting people's faces off, like the Mad Hatter, you know, another tragic
superhero villains in general.
The Man-Bat, which is Dr. Langstrom, who was trying to find a cure for, I can't remember what it was, but basically he accidentally turned himself into a giant bat creature and killed his wife.
Okay.
You know actually who is the epitome of tragic villain in the entire Batman universe?
Who's that?
Mr. Freeze.
Oh?
That man did nothing wrong, technically. All he was trying to do was find a cure for his wife's cancer using cryogenic technology, and he was betrayed by his business partner, and he was left in that room to die, but instead it gave him powers, and then he decided to seek vengeance on the guy who basically tried to kill him and basically doomed his wife to forever living in a machine or dying, you know.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze is like the most tragic Batman villain by far. Like his is a very sad story. It actually gets kind of a bittersweet ending in Batman Arkham Knight too.
Okay.
Which is kind of nice.
Now, I know this is a completely different type of villain, but I wanted to touch base on Homelander.
Yeah, he's not
From the boys.
he's not a tragic villain. That man is just pure evil, and his evil comes from egomania. He's a narcissist.
Yeah.
He is the prime example of narcissism for sure.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, he's just downright psychotic. He's definitely got the kind of narcissism where
power hungry.
He will kill people if they don't bow down to him.
He's power hungry.
Yeah, he is what you would call a fascist dictator for sure.
For sure.
100%. There are no redeemable qualities. From a psychological standpoint, though, from the shit I've seen in that show, he has huge mommy issues. Like,
yeah, absolutely, he does.
There's some Opeta stuff going on here, Opedi or whatever it's called. You know, Sigmund Freud would have a goddamn heyday with this. Like absolutely. Yeah, Homelander is the worst of the worst. Would you consider Ken from the latest Barbie movie to be a tragic villain?
Victim of circumstance.
Yeah, I would kind of put it that way. Victim of circumstance. You know who's a good one though? Candyman.
Okay.
Because he the reason that he becomes a vengeful spirit is because he was killed because of racism.
Mm-hmm.
After falling in love with a white woman, he was tortured and killed by her father and the cruel villagers who cut off his hand, covered him in honey, and let him get stung to death by bees. So, and that's why, his spirit comes back to kill people. He's a vengeful spirit, but a lot of vengeful spirits are victims of circumstance or tragic villains. In fact, I think a lot of ghost stories, most of the evil spirits are just angry because the way they died was they were killed, they were murdered or something, or they were tortured, they were treated badly. Let's see.
Michael Myers?
Michael Myers, if I remember the original movie correctly, he was already pretty fucked in the head as a kid because the movie opens with a first person perspective of him as a kid killing his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And he started with small animals.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know who? Oh, Godzilla. I would consider Godzilla a tragic villain because he's less of a villain and more of a force of nature. That man is just trying to live. He's just trying to live.
Yeah.
And he's being like, a lot of that shit was he wasn't originally trying to attack those people, and then it got instigated.
Yeah.
So that is an unfortunate one as well. I'm trying to think though. Well, I can't really think of too much off the top of my head right now. Let's do some specific sections. So let's say a Disney villain. Who's your favorite Disney villain of all time, if you had to pick?
Ooh, if I had to pick.
I think we might have covered this a little bit in our Disney 100 episode, but let's revisit it just in case.
Oh, shit.
I think I gotta put a lot of love out there for Hades from Hercules.
Yep. James Woods.
Jafar from Aladdin.
Jafar. We got
Scar from The Lion King.
Yep, Scar.
Gantu from Lilo and Stitch.
Captain Gantu, yeah.
Yeah, he's a fun one.
Yeah, he is. Dr. Hamsterville.
Yeah, Yzma Kronk from Emperor's New Groove.
Yzma Kronk, yes. Oh, okay. I'd have to say Yzma Kronk would be my favorite Disney villains.
Okay, yeah, they're pretty fucking funny.
They're funny, yeah.
I definitely have to put
Kronk. Wrong lever.
I have to put Hades up there for me. I think because he falls in that smarmy, like weaselly, smooth talking villain, like but also comedic. He's basically he's another Crowley type.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, no, I have to put Hades up there too because I can't not with my love of Greek mythology.
Right. On that same note, I think I would put Captain Barbossa from the Pirates movies
yes.
in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, he's only a villain in the first movie, but still, like, that's kind of what I wanted to touch. That's kind of one I wanted to touch on too. Was like villains that aren't like full on villains, but more of like anti-heroes or like double agents like Axel. And I think most of the characters in the Pirates movies fall under that. Like, they're all just kind of in it for their own gain. So they're not really, good guys or bad guys. They're just, trying to get what they want more than anything. And they work together when they have to. What are some, like, what are some of your favorite, like, double agent, villains or anti-heroes like that? The ones that'll play both sides and they're really out for themselves.
Huh. Not a lot that I can think of.
I guess I could say that you've only met one of them so far in your playthrough, but the Turks from the Final Fantasy VII franchise.
Okay.
They're basically just mercenaries that work for Shinra, but they only do what they're paid to do. They don't have an agenda. It's just kind of a job for them.
Yeah.
So Reno is one that you fought, but that's basically the concept there.
Yeah.
And even that, ones that aren't really, even ones that are just doing their job too, I guess you could count.
Yeah.
In there. You were about to say?
There's only the one I can really think of, the double agent that I've already covered him, Crowley.
Right. Yeah, but okay, fair enough. So we talked Disney. What is your favorite horror movie villain?
Ooh. I think I already mentioned this in the Halloween episode, but I'd have to say, based on my the first horror movie, first slasher film that I was exposed to growing up was Halloween. So naturally, my answer would be Michael Myers.
Fair enough. Now, this isn't my answer, but I do want to examine the Ghostface killer from the Scream franchise real quick.
Yes.
Because it's never the same person. Every movie,
No,
it's a different
definitely.
it's a different killer, and that's because the idea of the Ghostface killer is basically like an ongoing cult of killers that are carrying on a legacy, more or less. And
absolutely,
when you think about it, Ghostface is basically anonymous before anonymous. They were Legion first.
Yeah.
It was because it was all about Ghostface being more of an idea and a concept rather than an actual person. And I thought that was pretty cool. We should probably also talk about Tobin Bell's Jigsaw. Probably one of the most
can't forget Tobin Bell's Jigsaw.
Probably one of the most complex tragic villains in history, because
he helps people.
He starts. Well, that's that's debatable, but he starts as a tragic villain, and Saw X even gives him a lot of humanity to go along with that. But then, as you see throughout the series later, he just kind of becomes a bit of a self-righteous dick.
He's a bit of a life coach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's the way he put it. But I will say though, as much of he's got a bit of a god complex thing going on for sure.
Yeah, he does, for sure. Absolutely he does.
He's, thinks that he's doing the right thing by testing people who have done bad things, but some of the shit, it boils down to like really simple things like tax evasion and other stuff like that it really doesn't, compared to some of the bad stuff that happens, like why aren't you like going after like the murderers and the sex abusers and shit like that. This man's going after people. He's going after people who pop pills and cut themselves. So
right.
But I will say that Saw X actually gave him he met his match in that movie in terms of villains, and
yeah, he did.
Cecilia is a very good villain. They flipped the script on us in that one. They definitely did.
They sure did.
And then, of course, later in the series we get Hoffman, but he's just like he's worse than John in terms of narcissism. He's just a power-hungry megalomaniac who just is killing for the thrill of killing at that point.
Yeah.
And I'd say out of all of them, Amanda's probably the most complicated. And if anyone falls under tragic villain, it's definitely her, except that, she actually started killing people too when she made her traps unwinnable.
Yeah.
Granted, she was also being emotionally manipulated by Hoffman behind the scenes, but still,
Yep.
you know. Yeah, so a lot of complications going around there throughout that whole thing for sure. But let's see. I would say my favorite horror villain, probably Pennywise. Um, I just think that's a really well done one, but like specifically the Bill Skarsgård one, I have to say.
Okay.
Um, I definitely put him up there. Um, Quick shout out to one of the greatest video game villains of all time, Voss from Far Cry 4, played by Michael Mondo, who is Nacho in Breaking Bad, or not Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul. So, speaking of Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, shout out to Gus Fring as one of the absolute best villains of all time on TV, for sure. Gustavo Fring. And Giancarlo Esposito, who plays him, also plays a great villain in Far Cry 6 as well. He's a great villain in everything. He's also in The Boys as Victor, the head of Vought, the board guy. So, so are several Supernatural cast members too, by the way, in The Boys.
Yeah. Soldier Boy.
Yeah.
Jensen Ackles.
Yep. And in Gen V, the kid who played Jack is in that show.
Really?
Yep. Later on, you'll see him too.
Okay.
And Bobby is in The Boys as well.
He sure is.
I think he's the president or something. I can't remember, like the mayor.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but he's there as well. So, yeah, worth mentioning there.
Yeah.
Video game villains. Do you can you think of any real quick that like really stand out to you?
Bowser
from the Mario games. Okay. I mean, he's just a very like traditional like kidnap the princess villain. He's not a very complicated, or he's not really one you can write a psychology book on, that's for sure.
I would categorize the curator from the Dark Pictures anthology games as a villain, at least in my opinion.
I feel like he's more of a crypt keeper type character. He's more of the narrator. And it's very obvious to me, especially after the fourth game, that he's working for someone or something else. Whatever it is that came running up and banging on the door at the end of the fourth game, whatever that was, is far worse than him, I think.
Fair.
I don't know what it is, but I don't think we're gonna find out till the next season either. I did see that moment though, where
needs to hurry the fuck up.
I did see that moment though where he turned into a bird when he flew down from the bookshelf back to the desk, like very briefly. That shit caught me off guard too. I was like, oh, the curator is something more than he seems to be.
Yeah, and I have a feeling we're gonna find out in the next season. Whenever, maybe.
Speaking of like Crypt Keepers and stuff like that, Slappy the Dummy from the Goosebumps franchise, probably up there, with iconic horror doll icons like Chucky and Megan.
Chucky, Megan, yeah.
Huge shout out to Megan as a villain, by the way, one of the most original and well made, and the fact that most of the stunts for that character were being performed by a 9-year-old dancer.
And apparently the dance was famous before it was even a thing in the movie.
Absolutely, yes.
I thought that was really cool. Was watching that through the horror awards by Dead Meat.
Yeah, very good show.
Finding that stuff, that was pretty cool.
It's always fun to see that behind the scenes stuff. I do love that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm trying to think myself too, because a lot of video game villains tend to be kind of one note, but Dr. Nefarious from the Ratchet and Clank franchise.
Yes.
He's he falls under the cackly comedy villain style that I like. He's one of those doofus villains that doesn't succeed very often because he's usually hoisted by his own petard, you know. He's a clumsy idiot villain, and I love those kind too. That would be my third favorite, the clumsy idiot comedy villains.
Okay.
I think another good example would be Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. Yeah. Can you think of any funny dum dum villains that you really like?
Oh shit.
Like the stupid ones that fail a lot.
Shit.
I mean, like Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam from Looney Tunes. They're always being outsmarted by Bugs Bunny. Daffy Duck too.
Daffy Duck, yeah. Shit.
Or it can even be a stupid villain sidekick. You know what I mean?
Krunk.
There you go. Yeah, yeah. Krunk is a dum-dum villain, but he's also like one of those kind of like... He's one of those villains that's like, I think too stupid to even realize he's a villain. I think he's a villain with a heart of gold. You know what I mean? He's one of those...
Mm-hmm.
He's one of those villains with a heart of gold that like isn't really a bad guy. He's just a big, sweet idiot.
He's doing his job.
More or less, yes.
Victim of circumstance.
I definitely think that one counts. Just looking real quick. Obviously Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII is one of the most iconic villains of all time. His story, he actually is a tragic villain too, now that I think about it, because he was... I mean, granted, Shinra was never good, so Soldier wasn't technically good guys, but he was just doing his job. He was a soldier for Shinra, and then he learned the truth of his origins, how he came to be, how he was made from he was an experiment made from the cells of a ancient creature they dug up, and you know, he went insane and burned down a whole village and turned evil and fell prey to the mind control of Genova in the process. So I consider him a tragic villain for that. Funny villains, Handsome Jack from Borderlands 2, probably one of the most funny and iconic villains of all time. He is constantly taunting you through the radio and saying hilarious shit and telling stories about his rainbow pony that poops diamonds or some shit like that. He's an absolute weirdo.
Okay. I would like to rapid... Pyramid Head, yeah.
From Silent Hill. Pyramid Head from Silent Hill. And GLaDOS from Portal. She is probably one of the most interesting villains of all time. Her portrayal was really well done. She's basically just an evil robot that is trying to torture you by putting you through all these tests, and when you keep outsmarting her and getting the tests right, she gets progressively more frustrated and finds more elaborate ways to try and kill you off. It is...
Okay.
And she's a comedic villain, too. Like, she's really funny.
Interesting.
I think, yes. Oh, and the elusive man from the Mass Effect franchise. I can't forget about him. He's one of those mysterious villains that you don't see much of throughout most of the story. You know, he's the man in the chair kind of villain. You know, like Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yes.
What is it you wanted to rapid fire?
I would like to rapid fire a list of wrestlers that have portrayed heels in wrestling terms, that is villain side of things, that have played the heel that you just love to hate.
Okay.
Randy Orton is the number one heel that comes to mind, because whether you love him or hate him, he is always, whether he's a face or he's a heel. He's just one of those wrestlers that it's hard to not like him as a villain because he's so what's the word I'm looking for? He's one of those. He's in it for himself. Like they're just a really good example. He back when Bray Wyatt was still alive, back when they still had the Wyatt family. Randy Orton joined the Wyatt family, and when he was in good with them, with a flip of a switch, he turned on them and burnt down the Wyatt family. What's the Wyatt family compound? And he had this rivalry with Bray Wyatt from that point on for years to come, and it was probably one of my favorite rivalries ever.
Okay.
The Fiend Bray Wyatt, yes, while he is one of my favorite wrestlers, he is also the Fiend was an evil entity who consisted of oh man. Fucking the Firefly Funhouse is basically a demonic version of Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
The Fiend is his alternate personality.
Okay, that makes sense.
Let's see who else.
So much. I was gonna say so much for a rapid fire, though. That one was a detailed explanation.
Little bit, just for those two. But let's see: Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan. Let's see who else. Braun Strowman. Whenever he's a heel, he's a phenomenal heel. Kane, Undertaker, Triple H. Let's see who else. Brock Lesnar, The Rock, who's actually turned heel recently, and it's like 1996 Dwayne The Rock Johnson again.
Okay.
Roman Reigns is one of the as one of the I would say probably one of the biggest ones right now. Considering his ties with the bloodline, and he's basically the head of the table, the tribal chief, whatever you want to fucking call him now. I don't acknowledge him. He's not my tribal chief. Fuck. I lost respect. I lost respect for Roman a long time ago. He doesn't nearly defend his title as often as he should. He's becoming a part timer like John Cena.
I thought of two more tragic villains. Loki and Gollum.
I was gonna say, like, why didn't we talk about Loki?
Loki from the MCU, yeah, specifically just because, like, he had such a shit childhood and was never fully accepted by his father for being different, and he was adopted. And, like, I could understand where a lot of his stuff was coming from, but he also had a redemption arc too.
Yeah.
By the end of season 2 of Loki, he's a hero. And also, I would say by the time he dies in Infinity War, he's a hero too. At that point as well. So he basically had 2 redemption arcs. When you think about it, and in the I would also say, like, in keeping under the Norse mythology relation stuff too. By the way, Another character who, even though you played as them, I would argue was a bit of a villain in the first games and then redeemed themselves in the newer ones, is Kratos from God of War.
Yes.
Um, and his is a very tragic thing where he got revenge on the gods for the death of his wife and child, but also, doomed the entirety of Greece in the process.
Yeah.
And then
So
after he jumps into a new mythology and he gets a new kid, he basically redeems himself by
I would argue
trying
that
to raise him right.
I would argue that the first set of God of War games was all based on Greek mythology, and then Norse mythology was all the newer
Yep.
ones.
Yep, that's exactly how it is.
Yep.
But sticking with that tragic thing, Gollum, he was definitely a tragic villain because he was just a normal hobbit until he found the ring, and then it corrupted him.
Yep.
It caused him
Sure
to kill
did.
his own brother in order to keep it, and then he just became a deformed creature, lost and gone insane, hiding in the mountains, got a split personality disorder, and in a way, like, he's a very tragic character.
Yes.
Like, he
Very much so.
he didn't choose to be evil. He was corrupted by a very evil, very powerful trinket.
Mhm.
And it damn near got Frodo,
It sure
So,
did.
yeah, so in a way, even though he does a lot of bad things, it almost seems like there are times where he wants to be good, but then the bad side of him takes over, and
Smeagol.
I feel bad for him sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Smeagol being the good side, Gollum being the bad side. Smeagol being his Hobbit name back when he actually was, normal.
Uh-huh.
Now, real quick, I know we mentioned like just irredeemable evil villains before, but what is a villain that you would consider like intimidating when they're on screen? Like they are genuinely frightening. I would say Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Hannibal Lecter is probably one of those.
Yeah.
There's not a moment he's on screen that isn't like intense as hell because of how good he is at playing the character.
Freddy.
What's a good example that you can think of who
Freddy Krueger.
portrayed? Okay, yeah, I could see that. Robert Englund portrays him so well that every time he's on screen, it gives you the willies, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Like he's
See,
intimidating.
okay.
Like some villains are fun. He's kind
argue-
of fun too. He cracks jokes, but like he's also scary. Yeah.
I might argue because porcelain dolls freak me the fuck out anyways. Annabelle.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if when it comes to things that you are genuinely afraid of, yeah, I would say even Pennywise fell under this because even though he was funny, whenever he popped up on screen, some shit was about to go down.
Right.
But there are some villains that are like fun and entertaining to watch, and then there's others, and like when they show up, you get excited. You're like, "Ooh, here's the fun guy," but then there are some villains that when they show up, it makes you uncomfortable because they're just so good at being evil. They're just so good at bad. So yeah,
Classic.
Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter falls under that. I would also say Christian Bale's Patrick Bateman from American Psycho
Okay.
falls under that as well.
I would say
Definitely.
a classic villain, a classic horror villain that I just actually watched The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Oh,
Dracula.
okay. I haven't watched that yet, but it's on my list.
I did end up falling asleep during it, but from what I did see, I did see the design that they chose to go with for Dracula, and what prompted me to watch this was the horror awards. I
Right.
wanted this was I didn't even know about this movie until I watched the horror awards. So thanks for recommending the horror awards to me.
Yeah. Speaking of pure evil, that movie, When Evil Lurks, looks like it's got to be one of the most brutal horror movies ever made.
Because
Like
it won best horror picture or
Best practical effects.
best practical. It basically it swept the horror awards.
Yeah, that part with the dog was like jarring as hell.
That is what is
And-
stopping me from watching this movie.
I
That
mean,
is
but
what's
I do
stopping
think,
me from
like,
watching. I want to watch this movie
you
so
pretty
bad.
much already you pretty much already saw all of it in the clips.
I want to watch this movie, but I don't know if there's anything else that would be considered triggering for me.
Fair enough. Yeah, that one is
There-
that one
the-
definitely is more of a brutal watch for sure.
See, so the way that the guy was explaining it is, they were showing that no one and nothing is safe.
Basically, that's how a lot of a horror is too.
Man, I want to watch it. I do.
They noticed a theme with a lot of horror movies last year was that a lot of them seem to involve children. Like, children have been the stars of most of the horror movies last year.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Like, yeah, it's younger people as the, they're kind of getting back to that. Talk to Me, it's all teenagers in that one.
Yeah,
you know?
look, basically like the whole or Children of the fucking Corn.
Yeah, they did a new one of those too.
Yeah.
And the girl that was in that deserves definitely I think she won Best Villain.
She
actually.
did. She did.
So, yeah, that was really good. I also want to throw out Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards, the German guy played by Christoph Waltz. Every time he's on screen in that movie, I'm genuinely afraid for anyone else in the room that's not him. Like, every time, because he has such a way of talking, it's very calm and everything, and he has this, but like, you never feel at ease with him because you just know at any moment he might just whip out the gun and shoot whoever he's talking to, or something bad's gonna happen. You're building up to it.
Mm-hmm.
He's in his scenes are so intense because you just know something bad's gonna happen, and he draws it out. He's one of those villains that monologues before killing someone, and it's fucking frightening as hell. He's way too smooth and way too calm. He's one of those very calm villains, and that makes him scarier.
If we're talking Quentin Tarantino villains, I'd have to say Leo DiCaprio's character in Django Unchained.
Absolutely.
That was. Didn't he say in an interview that he almost walked off of set because he did not like how racist his character was?
He had a hard time playing that character, he said, but he did a good job with it.
He did.
And then, of course, he actually, accidentally, that glass that he broke in that one scene actually cut his hand for real when he did that.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, and they just kept it in. They kind of improv'd it a bit. That's his hand. You can see his hand bandaged later after that.
Yeah.
But... okay, yeah, we got pretty deep here into the villain talk, and we covered a lot of them, and we kind of, dug into why they are good villains, and some of the psychology behind them, and the performances that made them so iconic, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up here, we don't usually do this because we don't usually have them, but I have a couple of comments from the last episode we put out, the Media Corner Revisited Part 1.
Okay.
Well, not the last episode, but the last episode that has been public at the time of recording this, because at the time of recording this, the sports episode hasn't come out yet.
Right.
So, but by the time you folks are hearing this at home, that episode will have came out. And these comments were posted within the last 3 to 4 days, so they were posted after we recorded that. So
who we got
that's
comments
why I'm reading
from?
them here. So one of our comments is, I'm going to read the short one first, is from our friend PJ.
Okay.
Who he said, "Good talk, for real, and Nick is in low orbit for sure. Good to see.
Thank you, PJ.
Good to see the brothers. Good to see the brothers chopping it up and enjoying yourselves, too. Stay blessed, guys. All right. This is what thank you for that lovely comment.
Yes.
The other comment is from Mythos, from Frost and Fists.
Okay.
Wolf Brother Mythos. And, yes, very consistently loyal fan of the channel. And he says, oh man, I was listening to this over the course of a couple days, but my notes got deleted or something. Trying again. Thanks for the love and the shout out, my brother. I really appreciate it and enjoy having you in the chat. He said, so he had some individual notes for a bunch of the stuff we talked about, and here they are individually.
Okay.
Man, I'd love to try that diner you and Nick mentioned someday, Beefaroo. Especially after Nick mentioned the eggnog shake. Eggnog is
yes,
is one of my favorite drinks ever, and I love it in other mediums: shakes, lattes, desserts, etc.
Oh, it's so good.
So glad to see you enjoying Persona 3. I freaking love that game, and I'm looking forward to playing the remaster. I'm thinking of trying to use it to bring a Let's Play back to my gaming channel. There you go. I'd love to see that. Excuse me. The game Banisher's Ghost of New Eden sounds really interesting. I'll have to look more into that. I haven't even heard of it before. It's cool that you and Nick have similar colored hair now. The new avatar looks great. I'm looking forward to your review. Let's see. I'm sorry work's not going well for you. I hope the job hunt gets better. Alright, here we go. Gorillas are cool. I like their radio stuff okay, but I've never bothered to check out their album stuff, probably because I'm not really into rap. Epic Rap Battles of History, never got into them for the same reason. Game Grumps, I've not watched a lot of it, but I need to check them out more. Admittedly, the only episodes that really caught my interest before is when Susie is on the show. I'm not a toilet humor kind of guy, so I'm not sure how much I'd like Ego Raptor's humor, but I love their music stuff. Magnum Bullets, Starlight Brigade, Ninja Sex Party, Bedtime. I love to jam to those.
Okay.
My Hero Academia is so good. I've loved everything up to the Dark Deku stuff. I think I'm caught up on Season 6 as well. I freaking love this show. Yeah. I really enjoyed the first Bendy. I'm looking forward to watching the Dark Revival soon. The Last of Us, I still need to watch. My wife wants to watch it with me, but wants us to finish other stuff in our queue first, unfortunately. After not watching wrestling in a couple of years, it was good to hear Nick talk a bit about it. To be honest, I wouldn't mind more WWE updates in the podcast in the future. Well, I have good news for you.
Yes.
I'm
all about that shit.
Question for Nick. I love playing the 2K games to make my own character, Wrestler Mythos, of course, and play through the career story mode. How is the story in 2K23?
I didn't touch the story in 2K23, so I don't have an answer for that. I'm sorry, Mythos.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'm sure you'll have a friend request sometime in your future.
Alrighty. He says, I'm so glad to hear that Talk to Me and Megan are nominated for some love at the awards. I hope they win some. Well, I have more good news for you.
Right. They sure did.
I'm fully caught up on The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I'm going back through the Clone Wars now to try and prep for Ahsoka. So excited for it. Unfortunately, I just saw an article today that said that the Mandalorian video game has been canceled. Yes. That is unfortunate.
What?
Yeah, the one that Respawn was going to make, no longer a thing.
Damn, okay.
Talk to Me was my first A24 horror movie, I believe. Since I really enjoyed that, I think I'll check out X and Pearl. I still haven't seen any of the Spider-Verse movies. I need to watch those as well. I enjoyed the show, my brother. Keep up the great work. So thank you, Mythos, for that very detailed comment as well.
Yes. Thank you, Mythos.
Yes, definitely please keep listening so you can hear this response to your comment eventually.
Yeah.
But all right, well, with those out of the way, I'll always throw in those comments at the end if we get any. So if you want me to read your comment on the show like that, then leave it in the comments down below if you're on YouTube, or you can send it to me in an email at mroversoul53@gmail.com. That's MROVERSOUL53@gmail.com. Or I can be found on Twitter at Oversoul53, and you can send me a direct message over there as well.
You can find me on over on Twitter, The Vaping Fiend. And you can also find me on TikTok, b.vaping.fiend.
All right. And, let us know about some of your favorite villains of all time and why they are as well. And your thoughts on anything else that we talked about, comments, concerns, feedback, questions, yada yada. We will do the best we can to get to them as well. So
yes.
All right, well, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed, and, don't forget to click that like button if you're on YouTube, subscribe or follow if you're on other platforms, and
absolutely.
Stay safe out there, and have yourselves a wonderful day. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.